Good morning to you and welcome to the live proceedings of the National Assembly on this April. The date is the 26th, the year is 2023. A broadcast brought to you courtesy of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. We are glad you're watching the proceedings of the National Assembly this morning. And to just take you through the highlights in the order of business this morning, is that National Assembly will be considering regulation of the betting industry motion, and this particular motion is by Honorable Duncan Mathenge. In this particular motion, the member notes that aware that Betting, Lotteries and Gaming Act, Cap 131 laws of Kenya, provides for the regulation of the gambling industry, including the control of betting, lotteries, and the gamings in the country, and further aware that there is an emerging trend of media houses offering their audiences platforms to participate in betting through lottery-style games, trivia shows, as well as polls and contests, as well as matters to do with small SMSs based on matters gaming, and concerned that the trend was initially perceived as harmless and has since developed into a problem within our communities, leading to many Kenyans getting addicted to this form of gambling that has led to lots of loss, and further concerned that there is numerous negative effects of this trend, including financial ruins, matters family breakups, and high truancy in schools. The honourable member seeks to have the members of the National Assembly debate this particular motion with the game plan being to regulate this particular industry. In this particular motion, the member seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the relevant ministries as well as agencies, do regulate the running of lotteries and any other form of betting disguised as polls, contests, and other SMS-based gaming by media houses, as well as ensure the strict operationalization of the Betting, Lotteries, and the Gaming Act, as well as increased control and oversight of the betting industry. The National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, Bill number 43 of the year 2022, is a bill by Honorable Simon Kingara, and members of the National Assembly will be resuming debate on this particular motion, making their input in regards to amendments to this particular bill. This particular bill has about an hour and 30 minutes left for debate. The Health Amendment Bill, Bill number 2 of the National Assembly, by Honorable Didmas Baraza, is a bill at the second stage, and members of the National Assembly will equally be making their contributions to this particular bill. Another motion set for consideration this morning is the development of a policy of funding for the junior secondary schools by Honorable Member for Mbeere North, Honorable Jeffrey Ruku. The business of the National Assembly is just about to commence this morning. The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, will be presiding over the business. I now hand you over for the live broadcast. Enjoy your viewing and good morning.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to your charge. Amen. I direct that the division bell be rung for 10 minutes.
The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, currently presiding over the business of the National Assembly this morning, has directed the Sergeant-at-Arms to ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes, and this is to give some more room to members of the National Assembly who are yet to make their way into the chamber to do that, to allow the House raise the requisite number to commence business this morning. That particular directive, our dear viewer, is given by the Speaker pursuant to the Standing Orders of the House, Standing Orders number 34, that guides the House on matters quorum. Let's continue having a look at the order of business this morning to get to find out more on what the business the House will be transacting this morning. And the development and implementation of child program for children whose parents are in lawful custody is a bill by Honorable Brighton Yegon that members of the National Assembly are set to make contributions on this morning. Pursuant to Standing Orders of the National Assembly, Standing Order number 42G, members of Parliament will be making statements, asking questions, as well as presenting petitions and seeking statements from various constitutional commissions that are to be replied before various departmental committees. The very first question given priority in the order paper this morning is a question by Honorable Member for Suba South, Honorable Carolia Mondi, who will be asking the Teacher Service Commission that could the Commission provide details on the current deficit of teachers in both primary and secondary schools in Homa Bay, Migori, Kisumu, Siaya, and Kakamega counties. Honorable Carolia Mondi will also be seeking to understand the state and have the TSC state the immediate plans instituted by the Commission to address the deficit in the named counties, as well as the timeliness for the implication of the said measures. These questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Matters Education. The Honourable Member for Nakuru Town East, Honourable David Gikaria, will similarly be having questions to the Teacher Service Commission, and the member seeks to have the Commission explain why some teachers in Lion Hill Primary, Hill Crescent Secondary, Nakuru Teachers Primary, as well as Natewa High School, among other schools within Nakuru Town East Sub-County, are yet to be paid enhanced housing allowance. The Honourable Member for Nakuru Town East will also be seeking to get the state when the said teachers will start receiving the enhanced house allowances, as well as whether the payment will be backdated to the month when the affected teachers became eligible for the enhanced house allowances. Questions by Honourable Member for Nakuru Town East will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Matters Education. Member for Tharaka, Honourable John Murugara, will be asking the National Lands Commission to explain why it has taken long to publish a report and its findings, as well as recommendations on the Tunyai B adjudication scheme at Gakurungu land petition to the public, as well as having visited the site on the 8th of September, the year is 2021, and undertaken the public hearing. The member also seeks to understand from the National Lands Commission when the report will be released to the members of the public. His questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Matters Lands. The National Assembly will this morning be considering the public health concerns at Langata Cemetery, and this is a motion by Honorable Felix Odur, the member for Langata, that aware that Article 42 of the Constitution provides for the right of every person to a clean and healthy environment, and further aware that Article 69 of the Constitution obligates the state to ensure sustainable utilization of the environment and natural resources, and this includes land, recognizing that the fourth schedule of the Constitution assigns the national government the function of land planning, and this includes the general principles of land planning and the coordination of planning by counties, as well as matters of health policy, and further recognizing that there is ongoing public outcry regarding the neglect of the Langata Public Cemetery, which was declared full close to 2 decades ago, and concerned that this particular matter has been left unaddressed and poses significant health risks to the members living in that particular constituency. Now, therefore, the House urges the national government, through the Ministry of Health, to urgently conduct an assessment of the public health public health risks posed by the continued usage of the Langata Cemetery, and to institute mitigatory measures and collaborate with other stakeholders. And this includes the Nairobi City County Government to identify suitable alternative land use for the particular usage of the cemeteries in this particular nation. The development and implementation of a program for the voluntary regularization of the land occupied by squatters for a prescribed period is a motion by Honorable Mark Mwenje that members of the National Assembly are set to consider this morning. The National Assembly is also set to consider the burning and the growing of eucalyptus trees in the country, and this is a motion by Honorable Moses Kirima. In this particular motion, the member seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Matters Forestry, orders absolute banning of planting of eucalyptus trees and encourages planting of indigenous species across the country. Also, the motion seeks to have the House resolve that the Ministry of Matters Environment orders the uprooting of all eucalyptus trees and replacement with other varieties of trees, particularly the indigenous species, to ensure conservation of various water sources, as well as preserve the ecosystem, as well as initiate the process of putting in place punitive measures against persons who defy these particular orders. The business of the National Assembly is yet to commence this morning, owing to the fact that the House is awaiting to raise that particular quorum to commence business this morning. And the development and implementation of child program for the children whose parents are in lawful custody is a motion on matters childcare by Honorable Brighton Yegon, that aware that Article 53 of the Constitution provides for the rights of children, including the right to free as well as compulsory basic education, and further aware that Section 22 of the Persons Deprived of Liberty Act and the Child Care Policy provides for the care of child whose parent is deprived of liberty until the child attains the age of 4 years, and recognizing that children above the age of 4 years still require parental support, and further recognizing that the majority of these children often suffer from emotional distress, social stigma, and economic hardships. Cognizant of that particular fact that all children should be accorded a means of maintaining their relationship with their incarcerated parents, the National Assembly has raised that particular quorum this morning. And I'll hand you over so we can follow up on the developments from the chamber this morning. Enjoy your viewing.
We now may proceed. You may stop the bell.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, we have today in the Speaker's Gallery the following students from Regis School, Runda. 1, Esther Oyo, 2, Ashley Wanjira, and 3, Michelle Kago. The honorable members, the students are at the National Assembly for 1 week as part of their job shadowing program, which the school undertakes in various institutions during school holidays. Honorable members, on my own behalf and that of the National Assembly, I wish them fruitful engagements during the course of their program. Thank you. Honorable members, I also wish to introduce to you the President of the Pan-African Parliament, the Right Honorable Chief Fortune Zephaniah Charumbira, who is seated in the Speaker's row. He is accompanied by Mr. Daniel Bukaane, a protocol officer. Honorable members, the President is in the country to enhance collaboration between the regional parliament and our parliament and the national executive. Honorable members, on my own behalf and that of the House, I wish to welcome him to the National Assembly and wish him fruitful engagements during his stay in the country. I will give an opportunity to member for Kabuchai, the Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga, as you are a member of the Pan-African Parliament.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, indeed, I'm happy to put my comment on this very able man, Honorable Chief Fortune Zephaniah Charumbira. In his leadership, Madam Speaker, Pan-African Parliament has realized a lot, and a lot has also changed. And even the attitudes of Pan-African Parliament to Africa and the world, Madam Speaker, has changed. We are very grateful about him, Madam Speaker, that this man is among the Africa's finest. The leadership in terms of the platform as PAP, offering the platform for Africa's voice on trade and African dignity, Madam Speaker, has come to its fruition. I wish him a nice stay in Kenya and safe flight back to South Africa, Midland, as we shall join him in May as members of PAP. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving this chance. Thank you.
I'll also give opportunity to another member who's a member of the Pan-African Parliament, member for Nairobi City County, Honorable Esther Passaris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is an honor for me as the member of Nairobi County to be a member of the Pan-African Parliament. And it is also an honor for us as the members of the Pan-African Parliament from Kenya, both in the National Assembly and the Senate, to actually host our president, Chief Fortune Charambira. Chief has been in the country for the last 2 days. He's had an extremely tight schedule. He was hosted first by our own Speaker, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula, and the Senate Speaker as well, Amason Kingi. Our chief also held meetings with His Excellency the President, where we were also present, including the ambassador for Zimbabwe. Madam Speaker, as we sat and listened to all the deliberations from the speakers of the two houses as well as the president, we realized that the continent of Africa has a lot of work to do. And it is our hope that eventually the Africa Union and all the members will realize that we need a huge budget. It is really sad that we have a deficit in our budget and we are not able to accomplish all the things that the founders of the Pan-African Parliament had envisaged. Our president is very passionate. He understands the issues from trade to tariffs to freedom of passage of movement within the continent, to also climate change issues. We are going to be hosting in the month of May, as we go into session, climate change as an agenda and a topic, and thereafter also trade. And we are also hoping that our own president will be there to give a keynote address because he is very passionate and he's driving the agenda of climate change. We know that Africa suffers the brunt of climate change, and yet we are not the contributors of gases into the environment. So we as Kenya, I believe we are very proud that we have delivered our president to the country and engaged in all these deliberations, and we're hoping that eventually Africa as a continent will be able to stand firmly and maximize on its resources, its consumption, its production locally. The president had mentioned that we're a huge market and we cannot be ignored. And we also need the respect of all our international partners as the continent of Africa. We are no longer the dark continent. We're a continent with a lot of potential, with a population with a huge purchasing power, with a young population that is vibrant and educated. So as a continent, we want to be able to make model laws so that as a continent we can move together. But without resources, this is not going to be easy. So as our parliament deliberates, we also want to push for resources for the Pan-African Parliament so that we can achieve our mandate to legislate and harmonize growth and prosperity, not only in our own countries, our regions, but in the continent. I want to say thank you to our president for being with us this week and wish you journey mercies as you head back. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I also call upon Member for Eldama Ravine, the Honorable Musa Sirma, who previously served with the Chief of the President of the Pan-African Parliament.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I appreciate the visit by the President of Pan-African Parliament, I would like to say I had the honor and privilege to serve with him during the second Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, that is the 2008 to 2013 Parliament. And Madam Speaker, you will realize that those who climb the ladder of Pan-African Parliament leadership are those who have the experience and those who have served in the Pan-African Parliament. I would like to ask our members who are serving in the Pan-African Parliament at the present time that we need them back so that they could climb up the leadership. We have heads of bureaus who are deputies and head of the caucuses. I know the members from Kenya were late in going to the Pan-African Parliament, and I hope that they will be considered so that they can be able to climb up the ladder of the Pan-African Parliament leadership. Madam Speaker, this parliament is a great parliament. when we are going to be discussing about Africa, the free trade zone, to have our countries trade internally without going out of Africa. This is the instrumental tool to be used by the African countries to be able to have Africa grow. I want to wish my good friend, Chief, I don't know, possibly many members may not know why he's called Chief. He owns a kingdom in Zimbabwe. And therefore, Madam Speaker, this is a great man who has been installed as a chief, and he has also been installed as the president of Pan-African Parliament. May you have Johnny Mercies, God's blessings as you lead the voice of Africa into one voice. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I also call upon the Honorable Rehab Mokami, member for Nyeri County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank our President, Chief Fortune from South Africa. I want to thank him because he really welcomed us when we went to South Africa, as we went late, and he was able to assist us, and we allocated committees. Personally, I'm in a committee of cooperation. Honorable Speaker, we are going to support our president. We are going to support democracy within the Africa and the economy challenges. We are going to support on free trade area, ecosystem Africa, to utilize trade business in our continent. Honorable Speaker, lastly, we are going to continue widening and deepening Africa integration. Honorable Speaker, I want to wish our President, Johnny Mercies, hoping to see him next month in May. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I wish to call upon the Honorable Didimas Baraza, member for Kimilili.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to welcome the President of the Pan-African Parliament, and just tell them that we, members of the African continent, look at Pan-African Parliament with a lot of optimism. We will want to see seamless Africa, where people would cross our continent not being required to provide any visa, because we are one people, we are one continent. We would want to see the Kenyan people crossing over to South Africa for employment, crossing over to Zimbabwe for employment without any hindrance, Madam Speaker, because Africa is one, and we should not allow ourselves to be divided by these European countries that are bringing a lot of procedures and protocols when you are traveling from one country to another country within the African continent. And the Pan-African Parliament must be also very instrumental to ensure that constituent parliaments adopts and implements whatever is resolved at Pan-African Parliament, so that it can be beneficial to each and every citizen of African countries. So I take this time to welcome them and wish them that they should not be in a hurry to go back to South Africa. They can visit Masai Mara, they can go to Kakamega and see the crying stone, or they can go to Bungoma and walk within the infamous caves of Mount Elgon. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
And lastly, the Honorable Nabwera Nabi, member for Lugari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to add my voice to welcoming the President of the Pan-African Parliament. But I also want to add that we would like to look forward to an African continent that has one common language of business. We would like the Pan-African Parliament to lead the continent in rediscovering itself where Kwame Nkrumah wished it to be. in rediscovering itself where Abdel Nasser wished it to be. I would like to ask the president that as he is in this country, in a country that the people love visitors, he should use that opportunity to encourage all other leaders around the continent to work towards an Africa that is united, a continent that will trade within itself, a continent that is going to build the infrastructure that will be able to make it compete with the Asian tigers, that will compete with the West, that will compete with the Eastern Bloc, and that will ensure that the disenfranchisement that the continent has faced on the global market ends. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Pukose, member for Endebess. And I think we'll give one more shot to Dr. Makali Mulu, and then we can move to the next order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleagues who represent this country in the Pan-African Parliament to welcome the President of the Pan-African Parliament to our Parliament of Kenya, and want to tell him that Africa is one, and as you debate, as you guide the House in the Pan-African Parliament, I think we need to look for ways of how we can facilitate the free movement of Africans, free trade within our region, and even exploitation of our own resources, because Africa is rich. We are not poor. We have resources that are exported to other countries for value addition there. We can do our own value addition within our African region. One of the challenges facing South Africa as we speak now is the issue of power rationing. And since you've been in Kenya, you've not seen the issue of us rationing electricity. Electricity is here, is available in plenty. So, but then we need to look at how can we be able to exploit the power in Hinga Dam, which is within the Zaire River. And that power is enough to generate enough electricity to be able to fit into the continent of Africa. So these are things that we need to look at how best we can be able to, as a continent, come together, exploit our own resources so that everybody can be able to have shared prosperity and shared resources. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kitui Central, Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to join my colleagues in saying karibu sana to the President on Pan-African Parliament. Honorable Speaker, Pan-African Parliament is very important for this continent. The good thing is we have other parliaments which take care of other continents. And what I want to say, Honorable Speaker, is I'm very happy that the Kenyan Parliament is represented in this important parliament. Honorable Speaker, Africa is a continent of the immediate future. If you look at what is happening. As an economist, Honorable Speaker, I see three key barriers to our growth and development as Africa continent. And I want to challenge this important parliament to focus on these three challenges, Honorable Speaker, so that this parliament, this continent becomes continent of the present, not the future, Honorable Speaker. The first one, Honorable Speaker, is the language barrier. That's a matter which must be taken seriously by this parliament to see how us as parliament, as Africa, we can communicate to each other without really finding that even your neighbor, you can't communicate in terms of the so-called trade business language, the business language, Honorable Speaker. The second matter, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of trading. If you look at what is happening in the world today, trade is at the center of all what is happening. So we need to make sure that as African countries, we trade amongst ourselves, Honorable Speaker. That is going to make this continent grow, and it will be very good for all of us.
The other matter, which is important, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of what I will call our currencies. Honorable Speaker, there is no need why we should be having over 20 different currencies in this continent, because that becomes a barrier when it comes to trading, Honorable Speaker. So I want to challenge this Parliament, as we challenge you other regional bodies, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that as Africa, because you're supposed to legislate matters to help this continent grow, that when you sit in that Parliament, you make sure that those three key barriers to our trade, Honorable Speaker, are addressed. And this will make Africa continent of present, not continent of the future. I submit, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Karibu sana, the President.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader will
Yes.
go first, Honorable Mushangi.
Thank you.
You're going after. Okay. Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 26th, 2023, morning sitting. Report of the Auditor General and financial statement on Kenya Institute of Supplies Management for the year ended 31st December 2020. Number 2, report of the Auditor General and financial statement in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 2021. A, Kenya Institute of Supplies Management. B, Kenya Seed Company Limited and its subsidiaries. Number 3, annual report and financial statement on salaries and remuneration commission for the financial year ended 30th June 2022. Number 4, annual report and financial statement on Kenya Power and Lighting Company for the year ended 30th June 2022. Number 5, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022. A, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, Staff Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme. B, Annual Corporate. C, Kenya Cereal Enhancement Program, State Department of Crop Development and Agriculture Research. D, Kenya Yearbook Editorial Board. E, East Africa Skills for Transformational and Regional Integration Project, Ministry of Education, State Department for Vocational and Technical Training. F, East Africa Public Health Laboratory Networking, Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. G, Nursing Council of Kenya. H, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council. I, National Communication Secretariat. J, Policyholders Compensation Fund. K, Kenya Institute of Special Education. L, Veterinary Medicines Directorate Council. M, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Noodles Limited. N, the Export Processing Zone Authority. O, Numerical Machining Complex Limited. P, Kenya Investment Authority. Q, Kenya Industrial Estate Limited. R, Kenya Bureau of Standards. S, Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. T, Unclaimed Asset Trust Fund, Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority. U, Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority. V, Staff House Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme, Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority. W, State Corporations Appeal Tribunal. X, Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board. Kenya Institute of Supply Examination Board. And Z, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. Number 6, performance audit report of the Auditor General on response to the floods in Kenya by the State Department of Internal Security and National Administration and State Department for the Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development for March 2023. And finally, performance audit report of the Auditor General on implementation of Kenya Towns Sustainable Water Supply and Sanitation Program by the Ministry of Water and Sanitation and Irrigation for March 2023. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence of members of the ACK Gitare Church Embu from Runyenjes constituency, Embu County. Next order, Honorable Chairperson for the Departmental Committee on Labor, Honorable Eric Karemba Mushangi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad to see the elders from the Anglican Church of Kenya, Gitare. And the Honorable Speaker, it is good I mentioned that Gitare is my home area. And the Honorable Ruko, GK, can confirm that. And unlike the person we were discussing here yesterday, that fake Pastor Mackenzie, this one is a true religious group led by the Reverend Joyce, who preaches the true word of God and the true Jesus Christ, not the Jesus of Tongaren or not the Jesus of Tongaren or the Jesus of that other place in Kilifi. This is a group that preaches the true gospel of Jesus Christ. So having said that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 26 April 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee on Labor on its consideration of the Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2022. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
I think the Honorable Karoli Omondi, I think. Your question.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise this morning to ask question number 163/2023. Could the Commission, that is the Teacher Service Commission, provide details on the current deficit of teachers in both primary and secondary schools in Homa Bay, Migori, Kisumu, Siaya, and Kakamega counties? And could the Commission state the immediate plans instituted by it to address the deficit in the named counties and the timelines for implementation of the said measures? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The question shall be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education. Next, the Honorable David Gakaria. Or Gikaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 164 of 2023. Could the Commission, that is the Teacher Service Commission, explain why some teachers in Lion Hills Primary, Hillcrest Secondary School, Nakuru Teachers Primary, and Natewa High School, among other schools within Nakuru Town East Sub-County, are yet to be paid enhanced house allowance? 2, to state when the said teachers will start receiving the enhanced house allowance and whether the payment will be backdated to the month when the affected teachers became eligible for enhanced house allowance. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Sir George Murugara, member for Tharaka Nithi. Oh, yes, sorry. Honorable Gikaria, your question shall be also replied before the Departmental Committee on Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask question number 165 of 2023 to the National Land Commission. Could the Commission explain, one, why it has taken inordinately long to publish a report and its findings and recommendations on the Tunyai B adjudication section, which is also known as Gakurungu land petition, to the public, having visited the site on 8th September 2021 and undertaken a public hearing. Number two, when will the report be released to the public? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next order. Yours will be replied to by the Departmental Committee on Lands. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, regulation of the betting industry. Question to be put.
Next order.
Order number 9, the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable members, I think this will be a resumption of debate. Resumption of debate, and the balance of time was 1 hour, 28 minutes. I call upon the Honorable Member for Gatundu South, the Honorable Gabriel Kagombe. Okay, I call upon the Honorable Member for Mandera West, Honorable Adan Haji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to support this bill. The National Transport Safety Authority is a very important institution in this country. It is supposed to oversee and make sure that these road carnage, which are claiming thousands of lives every year in Kenya, is stopped. But unfortunately, every week we see, we hear, and we realize serious accidents, particularly involving the public service vehicles, the buses that is, and the regulation or the law of controlling speed is no longer adhered to. So I ask the National Transport Service Authority management to ensure that public service vehicles have controlled speed limits. If you travel to the Garissa-Nairobi road, you see buses overtaking V8 Land Cruisers, which is moving at over 100 kilometers per hour, and buses overtaking. And as you have realized, every month there is a very serious accident. The latest was last week, where 4 lives were lost. Therefore, regulating this sector is very, very important, because I think road carnages are killing more than diseases like so many other serious diseases in this country. if you compare with the number of people who are dying on the roads to the number of people who are dying of diseases, the ones who are dying of roads are higher. So in that case, amending this law so as to ensure that speed limits for Public Service Commission, so that there is some sort of control on our roads, and stopping drivers who are drunk on the roads. Also, on our roads, from statistics, there are so many drivers who have no license at all, but they have taught themselves how to drive and they are on the roads. When they are stopped by police, you see them doing handshake with the police. Their driving licenses are handshake. Therefore, amending this bill to ensure that controls are put in place and to ensure that lives are saved and to reduce the carnage, the road carnages that are there is of essence, and it is very timely. With that, I support the bill, the amendment. Thank you.
The Honorable Member from Dia, G.K. Kariuki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as the chair of the Committee on Transport and Infrastructure, I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on this debate. Honorable Speaker, this bill seeks to amend the NTSA Act number 33 of 2012 to assign additional functions to the National Transport and Safety Authority. And Mr. Speaker, the proposed additional functions include establishment of systems and procedures for the regional registration and licensing of 2- and 3-wheeled public motor vehicles, taxis, and regional registration and licensing of drivers of the same in consultation with the authority. Honorable Speaker, in compliance with the requirements of Article 118 of the Constitution and the Standing Orders 127.3, the committee placed an advertisement in the print media of 23rd February 2023 requesting for comments from the general public on the bill. In that regard, the committee received memoranda from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and obtained the views and comments of the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Transport and the National Transport and Safety Authority during a meeting held on 9th March 2023. The committee considered all the submissions before making its recommendations. Honorable Speaker, as members would appreciate, the intentions of the bill is very clear, and it seeks to ensure regulation of border operators, noting the definition of motor vehicle as provided for in the Traffic Act Cap 403, to which the NTSA Act makes reference to mean a motor vehicle as any mechanically propelled vehicle, excluding any vehicle running on a specially propelled way such as a railway or tramway, or any vehicle deriving its power from overhead electric power cables or such other vehicles as may from time to time by rules under this act be declared not to be motor vehicles for the purpose of this act. Honorable Speaker, the committee considered the bill and all the views expressed by the various stakeholders, and the committee made the following observations. One, the proposed amendments in the bill as formulated were already provided for in the National Transport and Safety Authority Act, number 33 of 2012. B, the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2023 by the Honorable Member of this House emanated from issues of laxity in the implementation, compliance, and enforcement of the existing laws and regulations, and not really a lack of legal framework. C, the NTSA Operation of Motor Vehicles Amendment Regulation 2022 provide for the licensing of motorcycle taxis by the county governments. D, in March 2022, the government launched a national registration process of 2- and 3-wheeled public service vehicles, and the same is to be done in the NTSA portal. And E, there are in existence regulations formulated in 2015 that provide that the motorcycles should have a third-party PSV insurance, riders to have a valid driving license, and operators to be members of a registered body corporate. Honorable Speaker, in view of those observations, the committee notes that there is no need to legislate on this issue, considering that it is there is already an existing framework sufficient to address the issues apprehended by the sponsor of this bill. It behoves the relevant agencies, NTSA and the county governments, to implement and ensure compliance with the existing laws. Honorable Speaker, in this regard, the committee recommends the House to reject the NTSA's or National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill number 43 of 2022 in its entirety. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Support.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for the committee. The Honorable Tom Kajwang, member for Ruaraka.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this bill. I speak as a member of Transport Committee, and members will then know that I speak with some amount of authority and understanding of the issues before us. The member who has just spoken is actually the chair of Transport and Committee. And so again, members, you may want to listen to what the speaker, the speaker before me has given to this House. There is also the vice chair of the committee, whom I'm sure will get an opportunity to speak. We say this so that members are guided properly when we make contributions, because we have had the benefit of listening to the stakeholders. We have explored the law on this matter. We have done a bit of research to be able to guide the members on the issues before us. Let me start by complimenting the member for Ruiru, my compatriot and my neighbor, Honorable Simon Kingara, whom we have served with in several committees for a very long time. He is an astute legislator. Last term, I remember him sponsoring more than 5 legislations in this assembly. And this term alone, he has had about 3 or 4 in the pipeline. So he's very interested in issues that goes through this House. And I think this is how it should go, that we are here to make law. This is the primary basis why we are here, to make law and assist in lawmaking. And I think the honorable member for Ruiru is really under his mandate, and I think I must compliment that. But when Mr. Kingara appeared before us, we then discovered, and we discovered with him too, that his bill was premised on a wrong misapprehension, that the border industry was not being regulated by law. When we searched the law, we then found that there is an existing legislation which sufficiently covers the border industry. But Honorable Kingara has a point which we need to listen to. His point is that, and all of us know, that the border is the most uncivilized or unregulated industry. You know, it resulting a lot of accidents. They are all over, one riding before you and another behind you. They are riding against you, and on your side, they have no respect for rules. And this is the point that Honorable Kingara is raising, that there is need to enforce those regulations. But we then found that the problem is not making law, it's not lack of law or legislation. The problem is enforcing of the legislation which is in force and the regulations that are there. And so we want to guide members, even as you will vote on this, to be persuaded that it is not the question that there is no law. It is the question that it is not being enforced. So when the chair is saying that we reject this piece of legislation, we are not negative. We are not saying that Honorable Simon has not done his bit. We are only saying that it was a misapprehension which can be cured, but the fact that there is law and regulations must come. We have already said that regulations must come so that this industry is properly regulated. I just wanted to make this fact known because when I entered, I found a member who was eloquently speaking, and of course, like me, feeling that the border industry has not been regulated, and he was supporting this bill because in his view, then this bill would help border industry. But perhaps he did not have a copy, and I urge members to take a copy of the report, which is at table 8 and has been circulated. In it, you will see very well that there is a legislation on this issue, and so we do not need to make another legislation. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very
much. My chair supported. I do not know why he did, but I oppose for the reasons that I have stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I would like Chairman, would you like because you have already spoken to this
Yes, Honorable Speaker,
motion.
thank you. I just want to correct my committee member that I did not support. I opposed.
So you are giving information to the Honorable Kajwang?
Yes, yes. We are on the same page, Honorable Kajwang. Thank you.
The information has been accepted. Honorable members, before I rise, I would like to confirm that the Honorable Kingara has indeed made a lot of effort in legislation, and he has also initiated another bill on registration of public land. So the Honorable Kajwang is right in giving him that compliment. Honorable members, in the public gallery, we have the PCEA Kanyakine Meru from South Imenti constituency in Meru County. You are most welcome to the National Assembly. They are seated in the public gallery. Honorable members, also, we would like to welcome students from various institutions who have been supported by an institution called Inspire Spaces Organization from Ruaraka, Nairobi County. You are most welcome to the National Assembly. Thank you very much. Honorable members, the next opportunity goes to the Honorable Mugambi, member for Buri constituency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think Honorable Kingara has always had very good intentions. Most likely what could have happened is lack of communication with the concern, the drafters of the bill, because I'm aware I served in the last parliament when the regulations on Bonda came up. So I agree with the chairman that there's already legislation. I think what the problem is implementation. Madam Speaker, it's true that this industry, Bonda and all the three-legged vehicles are assuming a lot of traffic in our loans, and the discipline is highly required. Madam Speaker, what is missing is the implementation of the regulations, and I hope Mr. Kingala will make that amendment and make it that we are lacking the registration. So I really want to say he could have had good intentions, but he didn't have the information. So I think he needs to reconcile with the chairman so that they can come up with a way forward in implementation of the already given regulations. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, the Honorable Member for Buri. The Honorable Didmas Baraza, Member for Kimilili.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to say from the very onset that I will take the position taken by the committee if the bill will continue to be the way it is. But as a member of parliament, I know that this was a very good idea, and I will have a discussion with the Honorable Kingara to see whether we can propose amendments to improve his idea. As you are aware, Madam Speaker, bills that found themselves on the floor of this House, it's an idea that gives each and every single member of parliament an opportunity to improve and better it. The sections which Honorable Kingara proposed that are already provided for in the NTSA Act, that is what we're able to find out as a committee. I will be able to sit with the Honorable Kingara and see whether we can find a way of proposing deletion and addition of other sections, because we all agree that we have a mess within the border industry in this country, even as we appreciate that it's a very good industry. You remember, Madam Speaker, that during the handshake government, it's only the border industry that was functioning. All other industries had collapsed. So we need to give a lot of support to this industry, and at that opportune time, during the committee of the whole House, the third reading, I will be able to ask Honorable Kingara, together with him, we will be able to propose amendments so that we don't just throw away this bill the way it is, so that we get value from the idea that Honorable Kingara conceptualized to come up with this bill. But in its current form, I will adopt the position of the committee that we reject.
Very much, majority. Thank you very much, Honorable Barasa. The Honorable James Nikal, Member for Seme.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Madam Speaker, this was an extremely good bill, considering what we see, and perhaps not aware of what exists but not being implemented. The purpose, of course, was to regulate the border and the tuk-tuk taxi industry. Madam Speaker, those two services actually are the feet on which the economy of this country is running. The local economies, the local businesses, what keeps them running is the border and the tuk-tuk industry. If you look at what a tuk-tuk vehicle can carry, sometimes I marvel at the capacity. They can literally move anything, and they are affordable, and their consumption of fuel is low. So a beautiful industry. If you look at border, you can reach anywhere in this country in a short time using border. So it is an industry that we cherish but must be regulated. The need for its regulation and now enforcement, because the law is there, is the numerous accidents, the health and the safety of the riders and the passengers. Madam Speaker, the injuries, particularly the riders have, are so numerous that in some hospitals, you have specific wards for border people with injuries. I think this should not be allowed to be so, and so are the passengers. Madam Speaker, if you also look at the way they operate, they actually have been operating as if there is no law. Now we know there is. You look at even within this town, the borders will take that route, take that turn, and the police are literally standing there and watching. If they think they're being nice to them, they are wrong. They are endangering the lives of those people, both the rider and the passenger. And therefore, the need for enforcement is there. But it's good that you have looked at the NTSA Act and the Traffic Act and found that the law is adequate. And therefore, probably the need for this is not there. But there's a small element, Madam Speaker, that I'm not sure has been taken care of. What the bill was proposing is actually regional regulation at the county level. I know NTSA and the Traffic Act are actually at national level. So I think that is something we should look at, even if this bill does not go through, because there is a law for it. I think that the National Traffic and Safety Authority must look at regulations that will bring what was intended in this bill of county or regional regulation, so that we do not throw away everything that the bill came with, but look at what is not in law now, which is county or regional regulation, and take care of it with regulations, and then we can do away with the bill. So as it is, Madam Speaker, a very good thought, but I cannot support it because there is already law for it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyikal. The Honorable Owen Bayer, member for Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first I want to thank and congratulate the MP for Ruiru for his robust legislation. The Honorable Kingara has brought several pieces of legislation into this House. And I remember when we came in the 12th Parliament, one of the motions to be debated from a fresh member was Kingara's motion. And I want to thank him. But on this bill, I think we already have legislation that is sufficient, that covers the subject matter that this bill tries to introduce. And looking at the issues and reading the report from the Departmental Committee on Transport, my thinking is that probably the Honorable Kingara needs to relook at this legislation so that we do not double legislate. There is the issue of regional registration of motor vehicles. And I think that report, it has been highlighted by my able friend Nyikal. I think that also has been deliberated in the report, the issue of regional registration. And I think the Vice Chair, when he was presenting the report, made it very clear that it's a form of discrimination of some kind, that a registration of motor vehicles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers need to be done at the national level and not at local level. And I think it was adequately covered in the report. And if you look at the issues raised, yes, we have a problem within the border sector, and that is a fact. It needs proper regulation. It needs discipline. It requires that it is properly regulated. That is a fact, and that must be done. Today, a lot of the hospitals that we have in this country have wards specifically for people who have been injured through border accidents. We are losing very many lives. We are spending colossal amounts of money in terms of health care because of accidents caused by the border. And these are facts. But where is the problem, even though we already have a law? The problem is in enforcement. That is where the problem is, enforcement. And I would like the Committee on Transport to take this matter, summon the people who are in charge with enforcing the law, and ask them these questions: why aren't you enforcing the law? Why do we have many problems within the border sector? Because there's an Inspector General. There is the base commander. There are base commanders in every county. who are supposed to enforce law. But if you go to some of these places, you find that the base commanders and the traffic units that we have are more interested in what the border rider gives them more than what the border rider is doing on the road. And that is where the problem is. So the spirit with which Kingara is bringing this law is correct, because he has seen a gap. But this gap is not caused because there's no law. The gap is caused because enforcers are not doing their job. So Honorable GK and the Chief Justice here, you need actually, on your own motion, without necessarily having to have somebody present a petition here or request for a statement, on your own motion as a committee, you may need to summon the enforcers of this matter so that we reduce these accidents. These accidents are too many. We had a member of parliament the other day who lost his life because of a border. This we know, but how many other people? How many other people? Mama Mboga selling burger on the pavement of a road, and a border comes and runs over them and kills all of them. How many other people that 2 children going to school are carried by a border? 2 children. There's an incident in my constituency where 3 children of the same mother were being carried on one border. And those children never reached school. They died on the road. All of them, 3 of them. That's a tragedy for a family. Just because this border was not able to use his lights properly, you know? And he turned left before he had put on the lights to show that he's turning left. And this vehicle came and rammed over this border. 3 children from the same mother died on the same day. And if you ask, this guy had just passed a traffic station, you know, where the roadblock, he just passed a traffic roadblock. And this traffic police never bothered what this guy was doing on the road. He was just bothered about what this rider would give him. These are the issues that we are talking about in the border sector. How are they regulated? How are they licensed? Anybody these days who can ride a border just rides, whether he has a license or not, whether he knows traffic rules or not, whether he knows the road rules or not, he will just pick a border and ride and carry passengers. And yet, we have traffic enforcers on the road, and they don't look at this. I have never seen a situation where a border has been stopped at a roadblock and he's asked for a license. They never ask them for licenses. They never do that. They only ask, umenibebea ile kitu yangu. And that's what matters. That's what matters. Yes, and when they're given whatever they should have been carried for, they let the borders. A lot of the borders on the road, if the officers were actually enforcing the rules, every border would have gone to at least a driving school, gotten some a license, some basic knowledge on road use. People think that as long as you can ride a border, you know the road rules. And that is where the problem, Madam Speaker. So I would like to urge my friend, we served with him in the Lands Committee, a very effective legislator, Honorable Kingara, to, instead of allowing this bill to continue to a situation where it actually loses in this, why doesn't he withdraw it? Instead of allowing this bill to go to third reading and it is knocked down there and it has the indignity of one of those bills that was knocked off at the floor of the House. It's actually an indignity when your bill gets knocked off on the floor of the House. Why doesn't he withdraw it and sits with the committee and they look at the gaps, then reintroduce it to the House so that he can go on record as one of those persons that actually had a bill passed, as one of those members that had a bill passed and assented by the President from the 13th Parliament. That would be my advice. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Kilifi North. The Honorable Charles Ngusia Nguna, Member for Mwingi West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute what my colleagues have already said. I begin by appreciating my friend Simon for coming up with this bill, although it's already existing, Madam Speaker. We all appreciate this mode of transport And we know it is one of the ways of providing affordable mobility of services that is otherwise not available in many parts of our country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll begin by appreciating this industry, which started a long time ago when President Kibaki was in power. And we all appreciate that it has employed many people, especially the youth, who have got no otherwise source of income, Madam Speaker. We appreciate the way the industry has really contributed in terms of transport and communication system in our country. Madam Speaker, I would like to alert the House that in my constituency, I have been training border operators, or rather drivers, through the NTSA and also the people who provide these services. And I've seen a lot of improvement. These people only actually violate the laws and regulations on the road safety when they lack information. But we know already we have the law in place. What we need is just for the enforcers to make sure implementation of the same is done. So Simon, my good friend, Honorable, was actually on the right course of doing this, and we'll be looking forward to collaborating with him to see what the bill is missing so that we can make those amendments and make it more practicable to all the road users in our country. With those few remarks, I say it's a good thing, and this system needs really regulations to restore sanity on the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Charles Ngusia. The Honorable Phyllis Barto, member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also make my remarks on this debate on behalf of the people of Moiben constituency. Madam Speaker, I would like to appreciate the contribution our border brothers and sisters are doing in the economy. Their contribution to society cannot be underestimated because they offer a variety of services. In as much as the law exists, I think, Madam Speaker, what is very important is the regulation of this business. It is a source of livelihood to many people, and it has contributed in the alleviation of poverty in Kenya. In fact, it is the most progressive industry, almost overcoming the matatu business in Kenya. From my constituency, where I come from, the border community is a very vibrant one. What is only lacking, Madam Speaker, is the regulation. I think we need to enforce the regulations on this industry. We need to look at issues of having them getting insured. We need to look at the licensing, that any border rider gets to have a license and know the rules and regulations of transport. Madam Speaker, you will find that there are so many accidents attributed to the border riders. And as Deputy Majority Leaders has alluded, that there are some hospitals where they have set aside a ward for those riders who have been involved in road accidents. And it is not exceptional in any parts of Kenya, it's all over. What I would suggest is that tough regulations be enforced so that the industry is structured and regulated in a way that it provides services in a better way. Madam Speaker, we need to ensure that before one takes to the streets, to the roads, to the Kenyan roads, to ride a motorbike, they should have training, they should have a license, and also they should go for refresher courses any other time after a certain period of riding, so that they are always, so that those licenses are renewed. We find that of late, anybody just who can be able to buy a motorbike just goes to the shops, and even we have providers, those who provide loans to these people, to the riders, to get motorbikes in a very easy way. It's a good way, but you just buy your motorbike and you are already on the road practicing and learning, and at the same time doing business. We even have students, Madam Speaker, who buy the motorbikes and they go to school, they do part-time business. They are in school and at the same time they are doing the motorbike business. So that needs a lot of regulation, and that needs a lot of enforcement, and also the age. You even find very young youth, people who are below 18 years, and they are participating in this industry, making a source of livelihood, some of even paying their school fees, which is not a bad idea, but regulation is very important, and we stick to the age limit of where you must be, for you to be given the license, you must be having a national ID, so that the industry is run in a better way, because if we don't support this industry, Madam Speaker, we will have so many of our young people idling. We are at a situation now where we are fighting cases of illicit brew, cases of drugs. That is where most of our youth spend most of their time. The border industry is keeping most of them to be very busy. How I wish they could even be provided, or should be required to wear uniform, Madam Speaker, so that they can be recognized and have a very vibrant industry, have a big circle of border, and that way they will be able to run their businesses smoothly. Otherwise, I think the issue here is the regulation. In as much as we have the law, it is good to relook at it, to refurbish it, and put issues straight, so that we don't have a situation where we don't know what is happening in our roads. And not just the border business, even the Uber business, Madam Speaker. We have had so many cars, the Uber industry. And if you see the way they drive on our roads, Madam Speaker, it is a menace. It's such a menace. They don't follow any rules. They don't care about traffic. They are the people who create the traffic jams in our cities. So in as much as we look at the border, we should look at the rules and regulations all the way, and implemented and enforced, and so that we avoid the accidents. We are realizing that the road accidents are coming back, Madam Speaker. This is something which we had at least relaxed, and the cases were diminishing, but it is coming back in a big way. Every day we are reporting so many people losing their lives because of road accidents. I think we should generally relook at the transport industry and the regulations so that we don't just pick on the border alone, but we relook at the rules in their entirety. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I think that is what I wanted to contribute.
Thank you, Member for Moiben. The Honorable Gitonga Murungara, Member for Tharaka.
Tharaka. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this proposed amendment, and I have several reasons why I should do so, and I urge the House to also listen to this and reconsider its position. First and foremost, I've read the committee report, and what the committee is saying, there exists regulations, but there has been laxity in enforcing those regulations. I begin by informing the House that regulations are what is known as subsidiary legislation. Subsidiary means they are not to the level of the actual legislation. They are halfway between the laws. And therefore, what Honorable Simon Kingara is doing is to uplift those regulations so that they can become full laws in an act of parliament. It's important to inform the House that the hierarchy of laws in the country is as follows. The first one is actually the Constitution. It is followed by Acts of Parliament. Acts of Parliament are followed by subsidiary legislation, and then we go to precedents from the courts. So if there is a problem with enforcing regulations, the best way to tackle that laxity is to ensure that those regulations are moved upwards from subsidiary legislation to actual laws in an act of parliament. And this is what Honorable Simon Kingara is trying to do. Therefore, as we debate, may we please note that what Honorable Kingara is proposing to do is not inconsistent with our law-making process in the country. There is absolutely no problem whatsoever with taking regulations from the form they are in to be enforced by a regulatory making authority and moving that to an act of parliament which now behoves on the entire country for purposes of enforcement. So if you look at what Honorable Kingara is proposing to do, it is not in conflict with the existing act. It is also not in conflict with the existing regulations. Therefore, we should actually be lauding Honorable Kingara because while the committee has expressly admitted that there does exist subsidiary legislation which has problems in enforcing, and we do not know why there are those problems, they need to be explained. Then let us move this law upwards. Let's move it to the Act of Parliament, where even this House can actually question why the country is not enforcing certain provisions of an act of this Parliament. Regulations per se are passed through this House by a delegated legislation committee.
Honorable Gitonga.
Yes.
I have a point of order by the member for Ruaraka.
Thank you.
What is out of order, Honorable Tom Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, ordinarily I wouldn't raise issues or orders against my brother. He's my senior in profession. He's also the chair of a committee I attend to very odiously, and his knowledge of law is impeccable. But I think I want to discuss with him if he may be misleading the honorable members present on a point of law. If you look at the bill of Honorable Kingara, he is seeking to establish a body that, a mandate which gives policy to the NTSA. I think that is the point. Now, it is that mandate which is the mandate of NTSA under the law as it exists. So it is not a question of regulations. It is a question of the law exists in the same manner and in the same way in which the amendment is proposing. The component of regulation is a subsidiary issue to this debate. The component of regulation came about because the committee noted that although there is law, but there is no sufficient subsidiary legislation or regulations that can accompany that law for enforcement. So, Madam Speaker, could the Honorable Member for Tharaka qualify his issues on fact and law and review his statement to the fact that we are here, Honorable Kengara is actually bringing up the issue of regulations rather than the law, so that members should not be misled to think that there is no law and we are talking about regulations. He is very persuasive, and because of the position he shares, his speech may sway the House. And then people will think that really we are just uplifting regulations to be law. Yet there is law, and with a lot of respect, we are only saying that the law has already given the mandate to NTSA, the policy of standardization, the policy of enforcement. So the question is how to enforce that with the regulations. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Very well. Member for Ruaraka. I am sure
Yes.
the Honorable Member for Tharaka has listened carefully.
I have listened
to
carefully.
the matter that has been raised by the member for Ruaraka.
I have listened carefully. Unfortunately, I'm not able to draw the distinction as he has put it, and have tremendous respect for Honorable TJ, a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. What Honorable Kengara is proposing to do is to amend Section 4, subsection 2. And he's telling us, go immediately after subsection paragraph A and include the following subparagraphs. That's what he's telling us to do. Which means, for us to reject this particular proposal, it must be inconsistent with any of the provisions in Section 4. Unfortunately, I have gone through the entire Section 4. I don't see what is inconsistent. What we are being told, and I've read the report properly, is that in some regulations, including operation of motorcycles regulations, we have provisions similar to what Honorable Kengara is proposing. And what I'm saying is, there is nothing inconsistent with promoting a regulation from being a subsidiary legislation to being a part or a section of an act of parliament, because it gives it more force of law, and it is even better questioned by this House when it is actually a section of an act of parliament, as opposed to when it is a regulation. And this is what I'm debating on, that per se, the proposed amendment is not inconsistent with the main act of parliament. It is.
Well, so that you may proceed with,
Yes.
with the debate.
Yes.
There's nothing out of order. So this being a house of debate, I would like to allow the member
Yes.
for Tharaka to proceed. Just proceed with your debate.
Everybody will have his or her opinion on this, but I'm trying to say, if you look at this proposed amendment, we are making the law on borders and the tuk-tuks better than it is. Because nobody is explaining why do we have regulations on the same subject matter which regulations are not being enforced. Because they are a subsidiary legislation. Now, why don't we make substantive law? Once we make substantive law, this House has the power, and every other arm of the government has the power to ask, why is this law dead letter law? I do not believe, I'm not convinced that it would actually become dead letter law. We are doing a better job than we have. This is why I'm saying there is no conflict between what Honorable Kengara is doing and what the Committee on Delegated Legislation in maybe the last parliament did, because this house is actually buttressing the issue of registration, control, policies on borders and tuk-tuks into our substantive law. It's a very important industry. It goes without gainsaying that this country, almost 30% of its GDP may be hinged on that sector. But having just recently lost a member of parliament through some border accident, we are worried whether what we have in those regulations that are being quoted, what we have in the main act is sufficient. So I invite the House to relook at the proposed amendment. If there is need to amend whatever Honorable Kingara has proposed, let's do it in the committee of the whole House. But let us not throw away the baby with bathwater. Let us not reject this proposed amendment, while if we sat in the committee of the whole House, we would actually make the proposed amendments better. By so saying then, I do find there is a place in the proposed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amendments in subsection 2, paragraphs A of the National Transport and Safety Authority Act. I therefore urge the House to support, and I do personally support the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Baraka. The Honorable Adan Haji, Member for Mandera West. He seems to have withdrawn from the chamber. Honorable members, the next opportunity then goes to the Honorable Anthony Kibagedi, Member for Kitutu Churches South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise to first appreciate the member for Ruiru for coming up with these amendments. And really, if there are regulations that are in line with what is proposing, then it means they need to be enhanced. At the same time, while we appreciate the role that the industry has played in the economy, and isn't the transport sector, the transportation of people and goods, especially in the rural areas, we also need to appreciate that it is the same sector or industry that has brought about a lot of accidents. And when these particular operators cause accidents, they run from the accident scene. And other than that, when you're on the wrong, these people have a gang mentality. They gang and come harass, especially women motorists, and harass people, and in the process actually cause violence and even steal from motorists. So we need to have this industry regulated, and we need to have more enhanced regulations, so that we can have some what I can call sanity in the industry. We have people who are in the same industry, those who are doing courier business. You find that they are extremely disciplined, they are organized, they don't skip the lights, they are not involved in any form of mischief. And hence, I think I am in support of this particular amendment, and I know these particular amendments will aid other segments of the economy, or it will have a ripple effect, especially in the insurance. We'll have more money in the pool. Even NHIF will be able to get something out of that pool. And even KRA will be able to get some revenue from a regularized industry of the border. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Adan Haji, Member for Mandera West, is out of the House. I'm very sorry because the screen shows that he is here. The Honorable Omboko Milemba, Member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to weigh in on this bill by Honorable, which tries to mitigate the challenges that are in the border, not only border, but both two-wheeled and three-wheeled. Three-wheel would refer to what we call the tuk-tuk motor vehicles on our roads. Honorable Speaker, in my opinion, there must have been a gap, and all the time we make laws to fill gaps that are existing. And the honorable member saw clearly that there was a gap in existence insofar as regulation of these two-wheeled and three-wheeled vehicles was concerned. And that is why he came up with this particular law. We have been told by the chair of the committee and the committee members that there's an existing law which has not been implemented. But when you look at the dire situation that the border and all that section of the three-wheel, two-wheel vehicles require and urgently need, then you realize that the honorable member had a serious reason and has done everything correct in order to see to it that this sector is regulated. In my own county, Honorable Speaker, and a constituency in Muhaya, there's a very well-organized border arrangement, and with their general chairman at the county level. But severally they have visited me. The last time they spoke to me, they were telling me that they have a policy that is lying within the assembly of the county government. And the county government is unable to do anything about that particular policy. But that policy would bring about self-regulation and order within the sector. Partly, Honorable Speaker, why this is happening is because the border regulation has never been implemented, if it's there. It's now for the first time after this honorable member has brought about this matter that now we are being told, and now we are aware that there's a regulation which is not implemented. But Honorable Speaker, even the law that is governing this sector, by the time it was made, there were certain things that had not happened within this sector of border. For instance, the law that is existing and which has been talked about by the committee very clearly was made much earlier than the time when border became a passenger carrier. During that particular time, the piki or border were not carrying passengers. And at the same time, the tuk-tuk were not possibly carrying passengers and they were not in the country. Making of laws must be a dynamic process which is driven by need. And I think this is why the honorable member has brought this particular bill to this particular house, that things have changed since the time when you saw the piki not carrying passengers. Now they are carrying passengers. Look at this, that how is the licensing of a PSV motor vehicle driver done? There's a certain threshold of experience that this person must have in order to get a license. And this is because this particular person is going to carry human beings, and therefore they need to have some extraordinary assessment of his skills in driving. What about border? We don't have a threshold because we don't have policy, we don't have regulation, and regulation, if it's existing, like we have been told, is not implemented. So I think there's really need to consider this law on the floor of this House very, very fairly, without simply saying that there's duplication of the law. Honorable Speaker, if you go to Thailand, for instance, this border industry is not only a Kenyan situational problem or challenge. In Thailand, where the population is about 47 million people, there are over 30 million borders on the road. But there's no any disagreement or disorder in Thailand courtesy of borders on the road. In Kenya, where we have 47 million Kenyans existing here, Honorable Speaker, and the House should listen to this, we only have 5 million borders on the road. But we are already complaining that there's chaotic, every complaint, yet this is a sector that is driving the local economy back at home. In fact, in my own county, whenever I meet the borders, I tell them that you have taken over the teachers. Formerly in the 1970s, 80s, there were teachers who controlled the local economy. Today, it is border that controls the local economy. So, to bring order within this particular sector, this law was not a bad law. When I rose on a point of order against senior counsel, Honorable Speaker, I did not want to interfere with senior counsel, but I wanted to ask senior counsel, who spoke just after me,
Senior council are you referring to? This house has many senior councils.
The senior most who is here and who spoke on this matter, Honorable Speaker, as you have been told clearly, this is the senior most. I wanted him to bring out a clarity between the issue of duplication, because the only challenge to this law would be duplication. And I was hoping that you should be listening, Senior Counsel, that in the event that there's duplication of the law that is on the floor of the House, and that is in existence, then we would make a decision on that. But where it is not existing, this is a very good law. It should go to the third reading. And in that particular level, of course, as we usually do, the owner of this particular bill will sit with the committee, and they will harmonize the amendments that will be there. And we can pick every good item in this particular law and incorporate in the existing law. This will help the sector, and it will be very good for this particular house and the particular sector of border. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, the border sector is in their need of good regulation because they are doing good work. And if they are regulated, like I've indicated, there are only 5 million of them. Properly regulated, we need even to have as many as 25 to 30 million borders operating in this country, well regulated, earning an income and supporting the economy, and everything working very, very, very good. And that's the way we shall grow our economy. With those few or many remarks, I submit and support this particular bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, I can see several members raising their hands, but I would like to ask you to allow me to balance both sides of the House. So this opportunity goes to the member for Alego Usonga, the Honorable Samuel Atandi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill. And in supporting this bill, I want to fault the committee, the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure, for basically failing to do their work and using the submissions of the NTSA authority to conclude that this bill is bad. Madam Speaker, this bill is very important. And I want to agree with the Honorable Kingara for thinking through and coming up with this legislation. Madam Speaker, the question of regional licensing and registration of motorcycles is something which is timely. First of all, Madam Speaker, if you've been traveling across this country, you realize that there are some regions that do not need these motorcycles. Like if you come to Kisumu, you will find that there are tuk-tuks in Kisumu, but they are not in Siaya, because they are more relevant in Kisumu than in Siaya. If you go to regions like, Suba, you may not need tuk-tuk, you may simply need boda. So the question of regional licensing is something which you need to explore, so that each and every region will license these tuk-tuk and boda based on their needs. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I have, in my constituency, there are many cases where you find that boda disappear, they are stolen. Now, when a boda is stolen in Siaya, it is taken to Busia, it is taken to, very far-flung counties. And when you try to trace it, you will never get it. Now, when we have a law that allows for regional licensing of this boda, so if you operate in Siaya, you operate in Siaya. You can never have these cases where your boda is stolen and is being used in other regions. So I think that failing to take notice of some of these, realities on the ground is, I think, not practical, and I want to fault the committee. The committee simply waited for the submission of NTSA, and the way NTSA submitted that this law is bad, that is the way they adopted it. This is not right. I think this House needs to adopt this amendment and allow for seamless operations of bodas and tuk-tuks in regions that need them. I know that you know, you would argue that, you know, if we do regional licensing, then it would not be possible for a boda license in Nairobi to go to SIA and ETC. And let us be factual. You know, some of these things like boda and tuk-tuk, they are not supposed to be used for long distance, you know, transport. Long distance transport should be reserved for other forms of motor vehicles. And this is the reason why we should restrict them, so that if you operate in Meru, for instance, please let us use them in Meru. You know, let us not allow a boda from Meru to be driven all the way up to Nairobi. And this, I think this is going to help us reorganize our transport sector. And issues that are happening like theft, disappearances, you know, use of boda for criminal activities, we are going to tame them. And this can only happen if we enhance these regulations through what my colleague, Honorable Kungara, is proposing. So I want to persuade the House, just like the MP for the Chair of Justice has done. Members, let us support our colleague who has done everything possible to come up with a bill and a law, and let us not diminish all his efforts. And also, Madam Chair, this idea that members come up with very progressive legislation and committees decide to sit on them and oppose it and reject it is something that we need to refuse as a House. Because we are going to discourage members from coming up with ideas that are very good. This thing is very good, but I think NTSA cannot stop us from making a law simply because they think this law is going to take away some of their responsibilities, some of their mandate. So, Madam Speaker, I support this bill, and I want to persuade members to also support it and overturn the recommendation by the committee that this bill should be rejected. Madam Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
Much Honorable Atandi. The Honorable Joseph Kahangara, member for Lari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And from the onset, I stand to support this amendment to the NTSA bill. Madam Speaker, I think we all agree the boda industry is very, very important. It is an industry that has created employment. One of the problems that we have in this country is the issues of unemployment. It has created a lot of employment to youth coming from school and starting working in the boda industry. It has also provided transport from very interior areas where we don't have public transport, matatus and others. This is the industry that has been able to bridge that particular gap. And I think from what members have been contributing here, we'll all agree that as much as the industry is that important, there is a problem. And the problem is that members have said if you go to hospitals, most of the people there injured is through the boda industry. The committee and the members who have spoken here have said that indeed there are enough regulations to govern this particular industry, and probably the issue of enforcement is a problem. What I would want to ask the committee, is it enough to say that we have regulations, while on the other side we agree that indeed there is a problem? We need to be practical and come up with a solution to the problem that you're finding in the industry. And as the member for Roiro had proposed, as Mheshimiwa Tandi has said, is that he wanted the boda to be regulated from the regions, meaning that we have seen situations where thieves are using bodas coming from one area to the other, and then they disappear. If these bodas are registered, for example, within Kiambu, then the bodas will not be stolen and being taken to other areas. The bodas will not be used by thieves and that kind of thing. So for me, what I think is that other than killing this particular amendment, and Madam Speaker, let me say that we have seen it, that whenever members come up with private member bills, they're either taken over by government or by committees, and they end up being killed. In this particular case, I would urge members that because we all agree that there's a problem within the boda industry, let us sit, let us go to the third reading, let us do the amendments that are necessary, and if the issue of enforcement is a problem, then the committee should be able to summon the people who are supposed to be doing the enforcement. Either we are saying that either the police officers are ignorant of the law, let them be educated on what they're supposed to be doing on our roads. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I would want to stand and support the amendment by Mheshimiwa King'ara, and urge members that let us go to the third stage and reject the report of the committee that wants to kill the private members' amendment bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable John Waweru, member for Dagoretti South.
Madam Speaker, I appreciate this opportunity. I also want to appreciate the honorable member representing Roiro constituency, because I think the people of Roiro need to just take note of how hardworking this member is in this house. This is a member who already has 2 green papers in this 13th session of Parliament. This is the work a member of Parliament is elected to do, to legislate. He's doing a great job. Madam Speaker, anytime we put up any law, we are seeking to cure some mischief. We are seeking to fill in some gaps that exist within the law. And Madam Speaker, when I went through what Honorable Kengara has, especially when he was formulating it, because we were having conversations, I was extremely excited. I had seen an opportunity for this country to start regulating the subsector of these 2-wheeled and 3-wheeled motor vehicles on the road. Madam Speaker, the proposals that he was able to distill down to were giving me an opportunity to, even at the 3rd stage of this bill, to be able to introduce more amendments, Madam Speaker, where we start regulating and sanitizing the space of border borders and tuk-tuks in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I did look at the report of the committee. I combed through it with a tooth comb. Madam Speaker, I see a point of argument, yes, but I do not see the reason why we should throw away these amendments. The reason, Madam Speaker, is the fact that if the law already exists, the regulations are already in place, then the chaos we are seeing in this sector, Madam Speaker, the mayhem, the maiming on the roads, and the disorder and corruption around this space would not be existing. Madam Speaker, I say that it is a point of argument because there are people who are saying that maybe it is because these laws are not being enforced. Madam Speaker, enforcement is happening every day, from the policemen who are on the road to the regulations that have been put by NTSA and everything else that is happening in the attempt to clean up this space. It tells you that the problem is not at a subsidiary level. It is at a substantive law level. And that is what the Honorable Kengara is seeking to do. See a gap in the laws, try and fill up that gap, and that is why I'm standing, Madam Speaker, to support this bill. If we start doing what he is asking us to do under Section 4 and subsection 2, Madam Speaker, we shall well be on our way to moving in the direction that we are seeing Rwanda moving in. Madam Speaker, if you go to Rwanda, you shall see order. You shall see border borders that can never carry 2 billion passengers on one border. You shall see border borders that stop at traffic lights together with all the other motorized traffic. Madam Speaker, that is not happening here today. Not because we are not enforcing, but because we do not have substantive laws that can move towards sanitizing this space. Madam Speaker, to my mind, the border, the tuk-tuk, should be the last mile of transport from a bus stop to a gate. Madam Speaker, if we start looking at the laws that Honorable Kengara is proposing, we shall be able to put the border in its place, so that today you shall not be seeing a border speeding across a super highway where other traffic, matatus, buses, trucks are moving at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, and a border trying to deliver a parcel is trying to speed along the same highway in a place where you are stipulated to only overtake on the right side of the road, but the border cannot be in the middle of a highway trying to overtake on the right side of the road, because they'll have to cross lanes, Madam Speaker. The danger that comes to it is that the border is now forced to overtake from the left side of the law on a blind spot of a driver, and this is why we are occasioning so many accidents on highways because of these 3-wheeled and 2-wheeled motorized traffic. Madam Speaker, I would want to ask honorable members to just look at the recommendations that have come from the Transport Committee and see them as a point of argument that can be allowed. Yes?
You are moving very well with the debate, but in the interest of time, I request you to conclude.
Madam Speaker, I'm very well guided. I shall conclude by requesting the House to look at the recommendations made by the Committee of Transport and Infrastructure and look at the recommendations that the Honorable Kingara is proposing and see the gap that they are seeking to fill. And because whatever is coming from the committee, for me, is a point of argument, let us argue it at the third reading, where we shall look at what is good from what is coming from Honorable Kingara, what is being proposed by the Transport Committee. Where there is a convergence of ideas, we can converge those ideas. Where there is a gap, let the amendments fill this gap so that we have a substantive law that looks into how we regularize and sanitize and tidy up the space of two-wheeled and three-wheeled motorized traffic on our highways. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Member for Dagoretti. Honorable members, time allocated to this motion has come to the end, and I therefore call upon the mover to reply. The Honorable Kingara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to reply to the said amendment. Madam Speaker, may I start by thanking this Honorable House for allowing me several opportunities to stand on floor.
Kingara, if you intend to donate, because I see a lot of interest on this matter, you may please do so before you reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that good guide. Then I propose I donate 2 minutes to my sister here. Then I donate another 2 minutes to Dr. Nyakach, yeah. Karachonyo, a member for Karachonyo. Who else? I also donate another 2 minutes for member for Kwanzaa. Then another 2 minutes for member. I think those are enough. Member for Mombasa, 2 minutes. Okay. Then Kiri, another 2 minutes. I think those are 8 minutes, Madam Speaker. I propose that we follow the same order, Madam Speaker, as I have mentioned.
The Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to thank Mheshimiwa Kingara for allowing me to add my voice to this. I support the proposed amendment, and I will go very briefly, simply because it creates job for our young people, and it is also adding value in terms of economic empowerment, and then accessibility. When people want to rush somewhere, it also helps them. It also saves time. Those people who want to get somewhere very quickly, they use that, and I support because of all that. And it has helped many people to overcome some challenges like poverty, or as we all know, idle mind is devil's workshop, and it has helped our young people to overcome all the challenges that comes by this. Before I conclude, Madam Speaker, I want to say that we need to regulate and make sure that all border riders are registered and they are given their registration number, the hours of operations also given, and also encourage them to have their own circles. And Madam Speaker, also have special medical cover because of the many accidents that have occurred in the past, and maybe proper guidance and training be given. And as I finish, counseling center to be also started so that those who are going through challenges and trauma can receive counseling at the right time. Thank you, and I support.
Thank you. The member for Karachonyo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, one thing I must say about our transport system as regards border is lack of discipline. Lack of discipline by the cyclists themselves. I support the amendments. I support what Mheshimiwa King'ara is doing, but at the same time, we must emphasize on discipline by the road users, whether a pedestrian or the rider himself. And then, where the problem exists most is with the police, the enforcers of the law. I think they have relaxed so much that sometimes you think there is no law. There is no law because any rider is doing anything he likes. These are the kind of things we also need to confirm. But I do congratulate the honorable member for bringing this issue up, and I'm sure we all need to do some panel beating on whatever law that may be existing as of now before we go to the actual amendment. Thanks so much.
Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Madam Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. And just want to say, Madam Speaker, it's very important to have a regulation in place that will control and bring sanity in this sector of transport. It's very critical in our economy. And Madam Speaker, also that even the people who design our roads, this is now a reality. They must have a specific lane reserved for people riding on motorcycles, even bicycles and others, even pedestrian walk, because this is where the problem is, that they are squeezing themselves on the road that, Madam Speaker, is only designed for vehicles. So we believe that when this is put in order, I think, Madam Speaker, there will be a lot of sanity in this industry. And young people who are riding motorbicycles, Madam Speaker, some of them have genuine, they are doing something for their own living. So we support this amendment, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Zamzam, member for Mombasa.
Asante sana, Madam Speaker. Niweze kupongeza mjadala huu wa leo ndugu yetu Mheshimiwa Kanyari. Na mimi naweza kuchangia nikisema kuwa bodaboda wameleta uchumi wa Kenya kuwa bora zaidi. Bodaboda wameokoa maisha watu wengi kwa kuwa na wepesi wa usafiri. Bodaboda ni katika vijana ambao ni wa Kenya ambao wanatafuta pia ajira zao. Na mimi niwapongeze bodaboda wa Mombasa kwa sababu ni katika wale ambao wamekuwa na nidhamu ya hali ya juu. Licha hayo yote, kuna umuhimu sana wa kuweza kupiga msasa sheria na kuhakikisha kuwa pia wanapata pia sheria ya kuweza kuwaweka katika njia ya sawa. Tuweze kuangalia pia katika wale ambao wako katika asasi ya barabara, waweze kuwekewa barabara zao kando ili wasiweze kupita mahali ambapo kuna magari ambao husababisha ajali sana. Tuangalie pia waweze kujiandikisha ili tuijulikane kuwa bodaboda ipi ambayo imeleta maafa ama ipi ambayo imeibiwa, tutaweza kujua kwa wepesi. Niweze kusupport sana mjadala huu nikisema Kenya inahitaji sheria za kila upande, na sheria ni msumeno kata mbele na nyuma. Kuna wale wanaoharibia bodaboda sifa, na hao ndio ambao tutataka kupiga msasa. Tuangalie kuwa sheria na masharti natumika. Asante sana, Madam Speaker.
Asante. Honorable members, the last one on the list of those that the Honorable King'ara donated to is the Honorable Karido.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I also participate in supporting this proposed amendment on the bodaboda sector. This is a sector that is very crucial to the economy of this country. These are the people who are reliable mostly whenever transport is needed within the villages. And it's good that we restructure them by having this amendment so that they can know what to do. To me, I believe the borders should be fully registered. They should have circles from the village level, and circles like those of Matato, Madam Speaker, so that we know each border that operates a certain route. Wherever there is a mess, it will be easy to identify what are the causes and which is the boda that is involved. Also, it will maintain discipline, whereby each boda will know that they are SACCOs and they are responsible for their deans. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this is an institution that we should strengthen. This is a sector that we take care of. And also, we should encourage the insurance to take care of the bodas and at least give them the least possible cover that will take care of their motorbikes. Because most of them are not insured because of the high cost of insurance cover. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support this amendment.
Thank you very much, Member for Igembe Central. The Honorable Kingara, you have 2 minutes to conclude your reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to reply that the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, Bill number 43, which has been shared by members. Madam Speaker, may I also thank each and every member who have taken his or her time to contribute to this amendment bill, which is of a lot of essence in our economy. I know some did not support. I accommodate members' feelings and contribution. And my request, Madam Speaker, to this Honorable House is to allow the bill to proceed through amendments. Madam Speaker, may I also share on her side that I'm not rigid to contribution. I have a bunch of contribution here, Madam Speaker, from members. It is for this House to arrange laws to serve our country. I gave examples, Madam Speaker, of how we started with this industry. I gave also examples how the industry is mushrooming and growing, and if there is no sanity, Madam Speaker, I see ourselves going astray. Rather than going astray, Madam Speaker, I wish that we use such legislation to arrange matters which can lead to sanity in this country. So I want to support the members who are with me. I want to support who are not with me, and I wish that they join me so that we make good law in this country. Thank you, Madam.
The reply.
I move to reply. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, putting of the question is deferred. Next order.
Order number 10, the held amendment number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 42 of 2022, second reading.
The Honorable Didmas Barasa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, this Health Amendment Bill, number 2 of 2022, seeks to amend the health laws of this country so that the Ministry of Health can develop policies that will guide the referral of a patient from one facility to the other. It also includes, that the minister concerned will, in liaison with the various stakeholders, they will be able to come up with a policy guideline, with guiding principles that will ensure smooth transfer of patients from one hospital to the other, both locally and internationally. Madam Speaker, this is important because as we speak today, the referral of patients from one hospital to the other is done haphazardly. One doctor may decide to refer you to a different facility simply because he is moody, he is tired, he doesn't have the time. So we want the transfer of patients from one facility to the other to be guided by law. Madam Speaker, I want, before I begin to prosecute this bill, I want to bring to the attention of the House that I'm most thankful to the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly because a very experienced lawyer was assigned to me. We worked together in terms of combing through the existing laws, identifying the gaps. As you're all aware, that laws are made to solve a public problem. So I'm very, very thankful for the support that I got from the legal counsel that was seconded to my office and to me by the Clerk of the National Assembly. Madam Speaker, I have gone through the report by the Committee on Health. I've gone through their recommendations, their findings. I want to draw the attention of the House to a letter that was written to the Committee on Health by the PS of Health, Mr. Peter K. Toom, the Principal Secretary. The basis of this letter, Madam Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the House that the committee lifted the contents of this letter and it formed their basis of rejecting my proposed amendments. I will go through them one by one. Madam Speaker, the ministry says that they developed a Kenya health sector referral strategy in 2014 to guide the whole of this process. They also say that they are in the process of developing a policy guideline on medical tourism, which they have already initiated. They say so in this letter. They also go ahead to say that they have established a committee comprising of medical experts to review and vet referrals for medical treatment abroad to ensure compliance to the rules. They also go ahead to say that the rules that provides a roadmap on how a patient is transferred from one hospital to the other are contained in the rules of dental or medical dental practitioners. It is on this basis that they advised the committee to persuade this House not to proceed with these amendments that are to give them time to implement and do what they are doing. Madam Speaker, this is not enough reason why a bill that seeks to solve a public problem can be shelved. Madam Speaker, the thing that they are talking about being rules that are being enforced by medical practitioners, those are subsidiary legislations. And they are also not specific to the problem that I seek to solve. I want the House to ignore the contents of this letter. I want the House to ignore the recommendations by the committee, and I want to thank the Speaker of the National Assembly by allowing this bill to proceed to this stage, even when the committee felt that it should not proceed. Madam Speaker, I have also gone through the other letters that other stakeholders sent to the committee. The Kenya Private Sector Alliance supported my amendments. They have also provided suggestions on how this bill can be improved further. And I want to assure them that I will put their suggestions, their proposals into enriching this bill. Madam Speaker, we also have another organization called Coalition of Blood for Africa. They have also supported my proposed amendments. They have also suggested the other ways on how we can improve this bill further, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we speak today, there is no substantive law that health facilities and practitioners will follow into ensuring the dignity of the patients that are being transferred from one facility to the other. We have some who have just devised their own methodology. We have some facilities that have come up with very good policies, but we want to ensure that we have a law that guides transfer of patients from one hospital to the other, including transfer of patients from this country to the rest of this country. Today, Madam Speaker, if you are a doctor and you have a clinic across the borders of this country, say of Uganda, you can decide to be driven by the appetite to make more money and refer that patient to your own clinic across the country. I am also aware, Madam Speaker, that there may exist some health practitioners in this country may be colluding with the other facilities across this, outside this country, in India, in China, that they usually act as conduits to refer patients, even when the reason why they are being referred to is not merited. This bill, Madam Speaker, seeks to ensure that even before a patient is referred, this is a very good bill. This is an idea that can be improved by this House. When a member of Parliament brings a bill or a motion on the floor, the essence is to tap into the intelligence of more than 300 members who have got different expertise, Madam Speaker. So I bring this idea in the name of a bill, Health Amendment Act of 2022, before this House, so that we can improve and ensure that no Kenyan will suffer because of a lack of following a procedure, or rather just being referred to another facility for the sake of the referring agency making some money. This bill, Madam Speaker, it seeks to compel the government of Kenya and the ministry through the referring institution that they will also, even as they are referring, they must also inform the Kenyan embassy or the Kenyan consular from where this patient is going, so that the government of Kenya can also continue to offer some bit of logistical support in terms of understanding that how many citizens of this country are being treated in which part of the world, in which hospital, so that it also become the responsibility of our ambassadors and high commissions, that wherever they also have an added responsibility of taking stock of the number of Kenyans who are undergoing treatment in their country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the committee also felt like these regulations are enough to stop this bill from proceeding. Regulations are not superior to the laws. The hierarchy of laws in this country are made in a way that the Constitution comes number one. Number two is acts of parliament. Then the regulations comes third. Many health facilities and health practitioners, they don't take regulations as serious as when it's in the law. And there is nothing wrong. There is no harm. When I was coming up with this bill, I looked at the existing regulations. I looked at the existing strategy on referral from the ministry. And I found out that they were not specific So I have decided to enrich them and anchor them in the law of this country, so that the health facilities and the health practitioners can continue to be guided by this law, Honorable Speaker. I want to ask the members of parliament, I want to ask the Kenyan people who have been suffering due to lack of referral policy, where a patient goes to seek medical attention from a facility, and because of the negligence, because of laziness of the person in charge of that facility, decides that I'm not going to attend to this patient and refers that patient to another facility. Maybe in some instances, Honorable Speaker, patients are referred to facilities that are run by the same people, not because they are unable to provide a solution to what ails a patient, but they are driven to make more money, because, you know, when you are referred, you are psychologically begin to think that this is a very serious problem, and they take it as an advantage to extort patients, to demand for more money, more expensively, on a matter that could easily be treated by that health facility. Honorable Speaker, I want to go further and ask members of parliament that our role is to make the life of the Kenyan people easy, not difficult. Our role is to take an audit of existing problems and provide a solution by amending the existing laws. It is on this basis, Honorable Speaker, that I decided, in consultation with the other members of parliament, in consultation with the office of the clerk of the National Assembly, in consultation with the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly, in drafting this piece of legislation that seeks to repeal or amend the health laws of this country, so that we have a framework that will guide practitioners, that will guide doctors in this country, that will guide health facilities to follow in, or rather to be informed by them on when and how there would be need to transfer a patient from one facility to the other. Honorable Speaker, I don't want to belabor much, but I want to, with the utmost humility, call upon my sister, a very serious woman in this country, the Honorable Gathoni Wamshomba, the Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency, and even as I ask her to second, I want to sincerely thank the people of Githunguri for bringing her to this house, for actually going ahead of us to identify her as a person who is driven by the desire to see the welfare of the people of Githunguri better and keep improving every day and every time. So I ask Honorable Wamshomba to second.
Very well. Honorable Wamshomba, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to take this opportunity first to congratulate and to thank my brother, the Honorable Didymus Baraza, the young, vibrant, energetic Member of Parliament serving on his second term, representing the great constituency of Kimilili, and taking the bold step to air and voice a concern through his parliamentary obligation to bring an amendment to amend Health Act so that he can consider the dire need of the people whom we represent. Honorable Speaker, I'm very humbled to be standing here to second this proposed amendment by the Honorable Baraza as a woman leader, as a mother, and as a representative of the people of Githunguri constituency. Honorable Speaker, it is sad because I have gone through all the letters and memorandum of understanding that has been submitted to the respective committee in favor of this proposed amendment. Honorable Speaker, I have read submissions from KEPSA. I have read submissions from Kenya Health Sector, submissions from Coalition for Blood for Africa, and in summary, all the submissions are in support of this proposed amendment. We can never do a better service for the people we represent in this House if we cannot be able to embrace this kind of proposal. A proposal that seeks to regularize through a policy the ways and styles in which our medical practitioners have been referring our patients. Remembering, Honorable Speaker, that all of us are victims and we can become patients, and we have been patients in the past. Honorable Speaker, I come from Githunguri, which is a rural constituency. We have just had the opportunity to have one upcoming referral hospital. And we look forward to the completion of that hospital, which is supposed to be a referral hospital. And we'll be very happy to have a policy which is going to guide on referral system, because we also want to make sure that the facility that is coming up in Githunguri benefit the people of Githunguri and the neighboring sub-counties of Gatundu North, Gatundu South, and Ruiru and Limuru constituencies. So a policy to guide on this referral system would be very much welcome. Honorable Speaker, during COVID, when we were not able to move around, we had a crisis that bestowed on patients who were previously referred to other countries like India, and COVID caught them in those foreign countries. I remember we were receiving a lot of distress calls, emails, and contacts for us to be able to rescue our own patients who were referred into those countries. They were locked during lockdown. They were not able to pay for their hotel bills, their hospitality bills, and even medication bills. Some of those referrals, Mr. Speaker, that are done to those countries, I do believe, and I have a conviction as a Kenyan, that we have hospitals here in Kenya who have all the equipment and qualities of practitioners that can be able to attend to those cases. But we are quick to refer them to such facilities because of this new paradigm shift in medication called medical tourism. This medical tourism comes with token. And there are some people who are motivated by those tokenism. And therefore, the many referrals they make to certain hospitals outside the country, they are paid commissions. This is done as a way of earning revenue for those practitioners, exploiting our patients and our voters. It is therefore viable for us as lawmakers to support this kind of amendment so that we can protect our patients and our voters from such exploitations. Mr. Speaker, it is always good for us to come up with a policy guideline that is going to guide us on who can afford what in referral. Because sometimes we find patients being referred to facilities that they cannot afford. And as members of parliament, I'm sure you can attest to that, we are constantly in harambes, in fundraising ceremonies and functions, raising money to support such cases where people have to go to a certain facility for treatment, but they cannot afford. But because the chief doctor has referred, the patient has to attend. And therefore, we have become slaves we have burdens to pay, and we cannot afford. So we need to have a system where, before a doctor or a practitioner refers a patient, due diligence on whether this patient can afford to pay for the services that are being referred to is very important. Sometimes we refer patients to facilities because we have interest in the referral, but we don't care whether the patient can afford. This is very important, and we need to come up with a clear referral system. Mr. Speaker, where I come from, we have had patients who are referred to Kenyatta National Hospital from Githunguri, but they cannot get or access a referral mobile device. I mean an ambulance that is well equipped. Sometimes we get calls as leaders that a patient has been referred to Kenyatta, but there is no oxygenated ambulance, or we don't have quality facilities that are needed for that referral on an emergency. So I wonder, when the doctor is referring, do they ask whether we have a standby ambulance that can be able to sort the situation? Because we have even lost lives on the roads as we try to refer patients, yet we can save that life by making sure that we provide the required intervention before we refer them. Some patients have died at the lounges of hospitals as they wait for the processing of the referral documents. Recently, Mr. Speaker, I had a case in Kiambu Hospital where a patient died at the lounge, at the waiting room, as they waited for the nurses and the health assistants and technicians to prepare a document for referral. Now, we need a clear guideline. What is supposed to be done step by step? I mean for both onbound and inbound patients. Mr. Speaker, as I finalize on seconding this wonderful amendment, allow me to register my disappointment with the response that the Committee of Health received from communication from the PS in charge of Health, Peter K. Toom, Principal Secretary, Health. The communication says, the ministry in 2014 developed a Kenya health sector referral strategy, and they have also been in the process of developing a policy guideline on medical tourism. This health sector sectoral referral strategy, Mr. Speaker, was started in 2014, and to date, they have not completed making a strategy. So are we going to wait for another 20 years for the strategy to be completed so that...
Please add Honorable Omichomba 1 minute.
Most humbled, thank you. Are we going to wait for another? Because from 2014 to date, 2023, how many years has the ministry taken to make this strategy? And are we going to allow them to take further more years to finish a strategy so that the honorable member who is elected by the people to be allowed to make this amendment? So we cannot stop making an amendment to help the people of Kenya because we are waiting for the ministry to come up with a strategy. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I second the amendment by the Honorable Baraza, and I am proud that this son of Kiminili has done us proud by bringing this wonderful amendment to save our people. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Health Amendment number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 42 of 2022, be read a second time. First on the, to have a bite on this is Honorable Wanyonyi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity. I also want to thank Honorable Dismas Barasa, in a local language, I call him Kuka. It's my grandfather. I want to say that this is a very, very important amendment Mr. Speaker, that Honorable Barasa has come up with, and I believe each one of us, as a member of parliament, we've had one case or the other in terms of a patient, either a relative or a neighbor or just somebody from your constituency, that has been moved from one facility to the other facility. I have a case when I saw this amendment of my own brother, who actually was transferred without my knowledge to another facility because the doctor at that time had an interest in that particular facility, and where he was, he had no interest. It's a private hospital. Mr. Speaker, I ended up losing my older brother on the same. We are not refusing, and the bill does not say you don't do the referral. It is true, but you see, for you to move a patient from one particular hospital to the other, be it private to the to another hospital which is according to the facilities, first you must check whether it is true where he is gone to. The receptive in that particular hospital has all the facilities that this one doesn't have. We've had this one just being done haywire, and with nothing specifically, Mr. Speaker, to show cause. And of course, we have had a case where we preferred most of our patients to India. Currently, Mr. Speaker, again, with reference, I have a patient who is in India. I don't even know how the family ended up sending the patient to India, because the particular hospital in India had an agent in Kenya. His is just to get the patients to be transferred to his particular hospital. Now I'm being requested to attend Harambee to send money to India because the family is not able to pay for that particular facilities. And therefore, I think let's have some bit of discipline. We are not medical doctors, but we regulate for this country. And it's only fair, therefore, that we also say enough is enough. It's also fair to say, okay, fine, given whatever we have experienced as members of public, because everything else refers to these members of parliament. Whatever it is, whether it's a funeral or whatever, you said, go and see your member of parliament, get so many phones going for Harambee, what have you, and you find that actually that patient died in a third hospital. So I want to say that much as we are saying what we are saying, but of course, again, there's a very important thing. Honorable Litmus did not include the NHIF. Again, we need to have, as members of parliament, to insist that our people who have elected us here have what they call National Hospital Insurance Fund. That again helps. And they know the referral may not even go in for that. So long as they know that Litmus will come and assist them in paying for the hospital bills, they are referred from Bungoma to Mombasa, you can imagine. And most of the time, patients actually die at the facilities, like the second of this motion was saying, that she had a case where somebody was just sitting there and, well, ended up having a problem. So let's have some sanity, Mr. Speaker, and I think this particular bill of amendment, I think it's just coming to give us sanity in whatever we do, so that we don't have cases where people anyhowly can be moved from one place to the other just because of the personal interest of the doctors. They are professionals. We respect the doctors for their professionals, but some of them actually outgo. They overstretch their professionalism by doing what I think is not the right thing to do. With those few remarks, I want to thank Honorable Dismas for coming up with this very simple, clear amendment that can be able to help our people, and therefore let's support this amendment so that our professionals, our colleagues who are actually doctors, I have a case where he just mentioned, I don't want to mention the name, where one of the doctors referred a patient to Uganda. You can't believe that. You can't believe that, but in fact, a patient in Uganda because he had some interest. Let's stop this kind of thing. And please, doctors, we are not criticizing you, but we are saying some of you are doing the wrong things. I support this amendment. Thank you.
The Honorable Adan Haji, Mandera West. Oh, very well. Then the Honorable Kiunjuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And from the onset, I start to support. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the most important amendments that we shall ever have in the health sector. And may I start by saying that the Member of Parliament is acting within his mandate. We are elected to make laws and amend them when it's necessary. If you look at the response given by the ministry, it is as if the Member of Parliament is seeking favor to bring about the amendment. May I say this amendment is in good faith. It is good for our people. It is good for this country. And by doing so, the Member of Parliament is only trying to help or assist the ministry in what they have not been able to do for the last 9 years. They are admitting, yes, this is a very important amendment that should come up, but since 2014, they have not been able to do so. My question is, for how long shall Kenyans suffer because of laxity or inefficiency, ineffectiveness of our civil servants? And therefore, it begs on us as members of parliament to take our responsibilities seriously, because whichever way, our duty, why we are elected, is to come and do exactly that, to ensure that our people are not suffering. We should even be able not only to push on how our patients are referred, but even ask ourselves, how much can this government spend to ensure there is a workable referral hospital in every county in this country? Ensure that every county is properly facilitated so that this movement is even curtailed, that referrals are only made within the county, because all the 47 counties can have workable institutions that can be able to handle these emergencies. We are even going to push further by asking ourselves several questions. I heard Wamushoba say that in our county, a patient was to be referred, but they could not even move her because they even didn't have money or means of transporting them. In my own county, a week ago, a house was burned down, 4 members were victims, 3 died instantly, and 1 was to be referred to Kenyatta National Hospital. It took almost 8 hours to refer this patient. By the time he arrived in Nairobi, he was pronounced dead. 8 hours was enough to save the life of this gentleman. But because we have no means of ensuring that we handle emergencies, Kenyans are really suffering. And therefore, it will be important for us even to bring up amendments, ensure that emergencies are emergencies. Nobody knew that that house will be burned on that night. Nobody ever can predict when they will have accident. And therefore, it is also important to ensure that we have either subsidized facilities or we can be able to have free transportation, free referral to emergency cases in this country. And those are some of the areas that we should be able to explore as members of parliament to ensure that the people, poor people in this country do not continue suffering because they are not well endowed and they are financially not stable. We should also be able to ensure that we gazette all the institutions that are qualified to handle emergency cases and referral cases. Because again, you can see what the member is asking for is that we ensure that adequate measures are taken to establish whether the health institutions to which patients are referred to within and outside the country possesses adequate health equipment and health personnel. These are issues that should be done early enough. Let us gazette all the private institutions, county, and national government facilities that can be able to handle referral cases, to ensure that its efficiency, that our patients are being referred not to favor a certain institution, not to favor a certain doctor, Fred, of a certain doctor, but because these facilities qualifies to handle these cases. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what you'll be asking is to carry a comprehensive reform in the health sector, and also ensure that, again, the debate is once again introduced, either through a national conversation once again, and that is why we are talking of reforms in this country. That is why we are talking of even having a referendum in this country, because there are some of these issues that now need to be discussed once again. There are counties that are willing to hand over their facilities to national government, but the mechanism to do so must be properly established. We have to ask ourselves, is it the high time to look at the issue in the Constitution on health issues that are affecting our people? If you look at the most important things that any government can do for its people, is first of all to ensure that they are properly fed, ensure that they have proper education, but above all, health care in any country is so important, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I have no reason that we should be able to support this amendment and ensure that any institution that is serious, they should not wait until members of parliament brings amendments to come and tell us that we are in the process of doing so. Let them come together. If they have a better way of doing so, let them bring the ideas, what they need to be done, to the member who is capable, and we can be able to amend the law accordingly. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let me acknowledge and seated in the public gallery the students of Titus Ngoyoni Memorial Primary of Laisamis constituency, Marsabit County. Is the honorable member for Laisamis in the house? Very well. Let's now have Honorable Catherine Omanyo, Busia County Women Rep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whenever I hear anything to do with health, I tag myself to every word, every comma, every full stop. First of all, every case that is taken to the hospital should be treated as an emergency. And every institution as a hospital should be well equipped. I support this motion. It's, I think, a bill. I support fully because in Kenya, most hospitals, when you go there and you have no shilling, you will die. In fact, they should add that anyone who goes to hospital, whether they have money or not, they should be treated first, because that is why the doctors and nurses are in that hospital, to save lives first, not to make money first. And it looks like in Kenya, if you do not have actually money, you cannot be looked into, you cannot be treated. And this comes because of also the gap between the rich and the poor. So people are more drawn to rush to support or help somebody who appears to be moneyed. So this bill is good for all of us. You can never know where anything, an emergency can get you. Whether you are a president or a boda boda rider, Wanjiku Nafula, anything can happen to you. You can wake up in the morning with your 2 feet, your 2 arms, everything intact, and without precautions or whatever, an accident happens. And when an accident happens, if you were able, you become disabled if nobody actually takes a step first. So every institution, whether private or public, I think we should have a section where everybody, whatever is called as an emergency, unconscious, somebody who is immobile, when they are taken to their hospitals, they should serve or treat that person first before asking how they will pay. Thank you.
The Honorable Abdul Haro, Mandera South, is in the House, not being the House. Next is the Honorable John Kaguchia, is in the House. Then let's have the Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this bill brought about by my friend, which seeks to insert a new section in the Act of 2027, number 21, that's section 79. I mean 2017, sorry, I correct, 2017. And that is section 79, where they are seeking to insert a section relating to the referral systems. I agree with the amendment, Mr. Speaker, within and outside the country, because as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, there is no clear system of referring a patient from either a local institution to another or even outside the country. Mr. Speaker, we have a very serious problem at the Ministry of Health. That is the ministry that is charged with the health sector of this country. But where you find the largest number of cartels and the misuse of public resources is the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, when I hear the Permanent Secretary saying that they need to be given time to deliver it on something that started in 2014, that's a joke. Health sector is a very sector in this country, Mr. Speaker. We need to be sensitive to our citizens. We need to be sensitive to the poor people, because those are the people who feel it. Mr. Speaker, I am of the opinion that we start now arguing the government and pushing the government to have a referral hospital in every sub-county. Mr. Speaker, I have had cases where a public health center is referring a patient to a private hospital, knowing that there is a public sub-county hospital. Mr. Speaker, we are having a serious problem. And some of these people, they are not only doctors, they are even clinical officers. We have a problem. You find a clinical officer making a referral. Why? Because the sector is not well programmed such that the doctors take full responsibility. Mr. Speaker, we have the NHIF. Part of what NHIF should be doing is to establish medical facilities in every constituency in support of the counties, so that now we have enhanced medical provisions, and therefore, when it comes to local transfers of patients, that one is taken care of, Mr. Speaker. We have a problem of transportation. Mr. Speaker, I grew up in the insurance sector, and there is what we call a ambulance system, or evacuation system. We have no evacuation system in our sub-counties, or even the counties. I urge Mr. Decimus, please put in that bill that we must have a compulsory evacuation system, which is distributed equally to all parts of the county. It is very important, Mr. Speaker. And some of these evacuations, people have killed that sector because of interest in ambulance systems or private arrangements. Mr. Speaker, the other problem that I note is that the credibility of some of these hospitals where patients are referred to. And the worst is when they are referred to private hospitals which are lacking facilities, and we know there are hospitals in this country which have facilities. That need to be looked at. Mr. Speaker, the overseas treatment. We have had so many patients evacuated from this country and taken for medical treatment overseas. There is no guidelines of taking citizens from this country to outside countries. There is no connectivity between the Kenya embassy in those countries, between the consulate in those countries. There is no information. People are making private arrangement. And when something happens like what happened during COVID, there were so many Kenyans who suffered outside, particularly in India. So we have to have a guideline. And when the minister says, or the PS says that we wait, we cannot wait until when the problem arises. Mr. Speaker, we need coordination. The Kenyan embassy outside there need to be informed of what is happening. When a Kenyan leaves this country, they need to be given a protocol experience. What we have noticed is that the Minister of Education and Minister of Health don't even care. They don't even take it into consideration. What normally happens is this private arrangement. Kenyans are pushed into the airplane. Some of them have died in the airplanes. Some of them are going to foreign countries where they are not, the weather is not very good, and they end up dying. It leaves then the family to have the responsibility. He is occupying that office to sort out a problem, not to delay. In actual fact, the Committee of Health should be held accountable for the failures of the ministries, of the ministry. I should have expected Dr. Pokuse, the chairman of the Health Committee, to be here, but it seems he is not taking this matter very seriously. I have had a situation where a doctor has referred a Kenyan in West Kenya to Uganda. Really? Are we serious? And he's a medical practitioner. I wish I knew him. I need to ask Dr. Pokuse to tell me the name of that doctor because he comes from Western Kenya. It's a very serious thing. Mr. Speaker, it's the high time that the national government start working hand in hand with the county government. The business of taking Kenyans lightly is long overdue. So I thank you, the potential governor of Bungoma, for bringing this motion, and we will support, we ensure that it passes, and it must be enacted. So, Mr. Speaker, I truly can share the sentiment of the proposer, and I really support this bill, and ask that within this bill, we need to put a section that the government, through NHIF, should accept to send cesarean section. We need to be mindful of our mothers. We need to be mindful of the life of that mother. That's not the end of giving birth. So you can imagine a mother given 3, 4, 5 cesareans every time they give birth. I know people from Mombasa, they give 4 or 5 times birth, 4 or 5 times. You can imagine what the ladies go through. So we should avoid those kind of issues happening. And it happens because we have no systems of referrals. And therefore, I urge you, all the members, we support this bill, we implement it so that now we can move forward to providing good health care for our citizens. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable John Bwire, and that will be his maiden. So therefore, no interference. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me first to appreciate my colleague, Honorable Didmas. We have always agreed on so many things, including this one, that it is high time that we regulate the process of referral of patients outside the country. I want to concur with my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that the problem in the country is that we have literally commercialized everything, including our right to health. I say so because, Mr. Speaker, I come from a constituency that is in the border of Kenya and Tanzania. And in fact, my people always tell me that our sub-county hospital has been reduced to be a lodging. You only go there, eat, and sleep. There is no medication. There is no even simple diagnosis services like X-ray, MRI, and CT scan. And I think, Mr. Speaker, and especially when I speak for Taveta constituency, the problem has always been this issue of referral. We have cheaper services across the border in Tanzania, and if you were to go today in our hospital, Mr. Speaker, you will easily, even from a headache, you will be easily told, go to KCMC in Moshi, you will be treated there. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I say, I want to support the proposed amendment by my colleague, Mr. Didmas Barasa. But having looked at the law, Mr. Speaker, and having consulted my colleague, I understand the problem that he seeks, the mischief that he seeks to cure, as more of not a gap in the law, but merely an enforcement issue. And why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? I happened to this morning come across a legislation that is the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Act. Mr. Speaker, when you look at that legislation, section 23, it also gives power to the cabinet secretary to enact regulations to ensure that there is the proper administration of health services in Kenya. And pursuant to that provision, Mr. Speaker, there are some regulations, there's some rules that are called the Medical Practitioners Dentist into bracket referral of patients abroad rules 2017. Mr. Speaker, when you look at these rules, they clearly cover what Mr. Didmas wants to introduce. And that is why I mentioned to him, if the issue is about enforcement, if the issue is about failure by medical practitioner in compliance of the rules of 2017 merely because they are subsidiary legislation, then my proposal is, why don't we enact, why don't we pick whatever is good from these rules and put them as part of section 79A that he wants to introduce. For example, Mr. Speaker, if you look at rule number 3.1, the rules expressly indicate that before a referral is done abroad, 3 conditions must be met. Condition number 1, there is evidence that there is inadequate expertise or medical facility to handle the condition locally. That is condition number 1. Condition number 2, Mr. Speaker, is that there must be evidence that the referral will be most cost-effective option for the patient. And condition number 3, Mr. Speaker, is that the patient has opted to seek medical intervention or management abroad where public resources are not used. So, Mr. Speaker, my thinking is every issue that member has raised, including the issue of irregularities presented during referrals of patients abroad, are clearly captured here. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I looked at these regulations. They actually also provide for penalty if a medical practitioner refers a patient abroad in contravention with these rules. So, Mr. Speaker, my proposal is, if the issue is about enforceability of these rules, why don't we pick them and put them in an act of parliament? Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? Because the proposal that Mr. Didmas is saying, he proposed that the cabinet secretary prepares policy guidelines. The policy guidelines, in fact, in my view, in terms of hierarchy of ranking, in terms of law, they come lower than rules that have been passed by the cabinet secretary. So if the cabinet secretary has passed these rules and there is no implementation, then why don't we have them enacted in the act so that we amend section 79A to include the rules that are already there to ensure that those gaps in law are correctly dealt with, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those submissions, I've actually shared with my colleague Section 23 of the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Act, and I've also shared with him the regulations, and I've requested, and I've actually told him that we can sit down with him, agree, and see how we are going to improve this amendment of Section 79A of the Health Act. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Well spoken, and this came up also early in the morning during the early debates. And I think the cabinet secretaries are being called to order that they need to enforce and implement the regulations thereof that they have made or have not made. Where they have not made them, they need to make them, because the same argument did rise on the floor of this House early in the morning. Now let's have Honorable Rueda Obo, Lamu.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia nami nafasi nami nichangie katika hii sheria. Bwana Spika, mwanzo ningependa kumpongeza ndugu Mheshimiwa Baraza. Hii sheria naiunga mkono na ningeomba sheria hii iwe rahisi kutumika. Isiwe sheria ngumu kuwatatiza wagonjwa. Kitengeza sheria iwekwe kwa kamati, mujadiliane, wabunge wahusishwe, hata sisi tukitaka kuja huko tuje kama marafiki wa hii committee, manake haya ni mambo yanatuhusu na ni mambo yanatutatiza kila wakati. Bwana Spika, ningependa wagonjwa katika sheria hiyo ya rufaa iwe watapewa uhuru wa kwenda popote pale wataka kutibiwa, kwa sababu kumekuwa na mtindo kwamba mgonjwa anataka kwenda yeye mwenyewe, pengine anaweza kwenda au alienda matibabu India au anataka kurudi tena India, unazungushwa madaktari, unaambiwa nenda kwa our Kenya Medical Practitioner and Pharmacist Dentist Union usainiwe. Ukifika kule wanakuambia sisi hatuwezi kusaini, unaambiwa tafuta daktari akusainie. Daktari ukienda anakuzungusha, anasema hawezi kusaini, anasema kitu hiki inafanyika Kenya. Sasa kama kitu hiko inafanyika Kenya, mnamkataza mtu asiende kule anaamini kwamba atafanyiwa, na kule unafanywa kwa rahisi. Gharama za matibabu kule ni rahisi. Kwa nini hapa Kenya basi pia isiingilie matibabu yakakuwa rahisi? Kitu kama ni procedure hapa inafanyiwa, unaona hapa pengine ukienda hiyo procedure inakugharimu 300,000. Ukienda India pamoja na tikiti kwenda na kurudi haifiki hiyo 300,000. Na ukienda kule unaangaliwa mwili mzima, unaangalia kila kitu kwa gharama hizo hizo. Kwa hivyo isiwe katika sheria inawasaidia madaktari wawe wenye kuwafungia wale wanataka wenyewe kwenda au wanaamini kule atapata matibabu vizuri zaidi. Iwe kule wale wanawaruhusu, na wale wanataka kufanyiwa hapa Kenya pia iwapatie mbinu rahisi ya ambao mtu ajua tu procedure ni hii, nikienda kama ni referral inaenda hivi. Bwana Spika, ningeomba pia Mheshimiwa Baraza ikija huko kwa kamati, muhakikishe kila region kuwe na kamati ya kusema kwamba wanaangalia madaktari. Huyo amesema mama aende akafanyiwa operation ya mtoto, kutolewa mtoto, ichunguzwe ni kweli kabla hata ifanyike au baada pia kufanyika. Waone kulikuwa na dharura ya kweli huyu mama kwenda kufanyia operation, ikuwe ya region, kwa sababu mengine yatakana mambo ya haraka. Pia ikiwe na ya national ya kuchunguza, ndio daktari pia achunguzwe, aonekane kwamba mbona amefanya operation nyingi kwake tu, inakuwa kila mzazi akienda ni operation. Tujue kama sehemu zingine, nchi zingine zinafanya hivyo. Pili, kwa hiyo itabidi sisi tujipange hapa kama bunge, na pia ministry ijipange, kuwe na hospitali za rufaa za kila region. Manake hapa Kenya kuna hospitali 6 kubwa zile level 6. Lakini ukiangalia hizo level 6 ziko region moja. Ukiangalia coast nzima hakuna level 6 hata moja. Kisha bado watu huku wanazungumza one man one shilling one vote. Na ambapo hizo hospitali za faa ziwe hapo. Mtu akitoka Lamu kuja Kenyatta Hospital kama level 6 ya karibu yetu ni hii hapa. Mtu atoke Kiunga anatoka vipi mpaka kufika huku? Gharama ngapi? Watu wanaishia kumalizikia King Fahad pale, hawana uwezo wa kufika mpaka huku. Au referral yetu kubwa ni Coast General. So katika hii sheria ihakikishe pia izungumzie mambo ya hiyo level 6. Kila region at least kuwe na level 6 moja. Pia kuna rufaa ingine ile ya lazima, ile ya kufa, msisahau pia hiyo. Hiyo ni matatizo, manake hiyo rufaa hiyo sengine tunasikitika na kulitolewa executive order ya kusema mgonjwa, lakini mgonjwa akifariki hospitali maiti sishikwe. Lakini utaona tunaitwa wabunge, procedure ndefu, siji paka ukatafute title, utafute nini, ambapo huo mgonjwa amefariki ashapata rufaa ya lazima. Hakuna haja kuweka maiti pale. Tena hospitali ni ya public. Kisha unashikilia huyo maiti paka alipe, watu wafanye harambe, watu wafanye michango. Katika hiyo sheria pia mweke hiyo rufaa ya lazima. Bwana Spika, yako mengi ya kuzungumza, lakini naona wenzangu pia wana hamu ya kuzungumza. Acha niachie hapo, asante.
Asante sana kwa kupeana nafasi kwa wenzako. The next to speak on this is the Honorable Tandaza. You are next.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this very important and urgent matters on health. Honorable Speaker, matters on health are in our Constitution, Article 43, which clearly states that every Kenyan has a right to the highest attainable standard of health. He does not only have a right for health, but the highest standard of health. That is what the Constitution says, the supreme law of this land. Honorable Speaker, for any country to develop amongst the 12 pillars of competitiveness for any nation, health is number 4. So we cannot downplay the importance of health when it comes to the nation, especially our country, Kenya. But how is health handled in this country? As the previous speakers have said, there has been marginalization in terms of health facilities in this country. Point home is my county, Kwale. We do not have a referral hospital. Not only a referral hospital, but even a level 5 hospital, not even a level 4 hospital, and this is a whole county. So you can imagine, when it comes to enacting, actualizing the Constitution in the right of every Kenyan, having the highest standard of health, and you have somebody from Kwale County where within the whole of that county, there isn't even a referral hospital, not even a level 5 hospital. So we end up now with these expensive referrals that, thanks to Honorable Didmas Baraza, who has brought it to the attention of this House, that we need a clear policy. We need not only guidelines, but policies as an act of parliament, which can be taken more seriously, unlike what the PS was referring to. In fact, it saddens me that a PS would object to a motion which will make his work easier. It will streamline his department. It will streamline his operations to make it easier, which to me, he should have been the first one to say, this is something that should have come like yesterday. So, Honorable Speaker, this motion must be supported, not only as a motion, but actually be made into a bill so that it can be enacted as an act of parliament and follow to the letter and operationalized. Honorable Speaker, our doctors, unfortunately, just like many other professionals, I'm not just singling doctors, but we know our professionals do not adhere to the highest standards when it comes to their ethics. We've had cases in this country, Honorable Speaker, where when tycoon, in most cases corruption, one is taken to court for corruption cases, he'll only collude with some doctors to actually refer him to a hospital abroad, and he goes to abroad, therefore evading the due process of law, and he stays there indefinitely. After all, he has all the money that he had obtained from the taxpayer through corrupt means. You know, this is not money that he's worked for. So he ends up enjoying that money in that country. As the mover of this bill has said, there are no clear guidelines that if he is to move to Mauritius, for, let's say, the consulate or the embassy in that country, there is no regulation, there are no rules. It's not law that he has to report, that the commissioner has to be informed or the ambassador has to be informed. So he literally, instead of moving to a hospital, he only checks in on the first day and moves into a resort and enjoys his money there. So this bill is so critical, even on matters fighting corruption in this country. It's not only about health, but it even cross-cuts the other areas. And we know corruption has been a big issue in this country. So since our doctors are not exempt, and we know we have corrupted doctors, they could be few, but for those few, they really do a lot of damage when it comes to matters referral. Honorable Speaker, when we are referring a patient from Kwale to Kenyatta National Hospital, has that doctor considered the cost, the time, that whole process of moving that patient, or is simply saying, now just go out and die? Remember, the moment that patient is referred, the nurses say this one now should have gone to Kenyatta National Hospital. We are no longer attending to this patient. That family does not have the means. There isn't even adequate equipment to transfer that patient. So literally, the referrals that are being done currently, it's like it is the end time. Now, we cannot do anything here. You have just to wait for your time and die. And yet, we know with the current government, with the government that we have, it is high time we actually made sure that we have the necessary equipment, we have the necessary expertise. Wouldn't it be cheaper to move a specialist from Kenyatta National Hospital to Coast General Hospital with some equipment, attend to so many patients at a go, and like referring all those patients to Kenyatta National Hospital, when we know, even when they reach there, there is no space, the queue is so long, and one literally dies along the corridors waiting for the treatment. So, Honorable Speaker, I congratulate my brother Didmas Baraza for bringing this timely bill just to help the poor, to help the hustlers out there who cannot afford, who are misused, who are mistreated, who are exploited by unscrupulous doctors out there. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I support.
The Honorable Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to add my voice in support of this proposed amendment to the Health Act. Mr. Speaker, my understanding of why referrals take place is either because a facility is not suitable or there are no competent professionals to attend to a patient, or where the specialization required elsewhere. But I also think that this referral system is mainly for patients who appear to be on, who rely on publicly funded medical facilities, and not those who are able financially to access private medical facilities. Consequently, I think it is a very important amendment, and a lot of thought should go into it, so that whatever referral system is proposed is inexpensive, is timely, and is easily accessible and transparent to the most vulnerable members of society. I think there's a problem with self-regulation of medical practice in this country, where standards are not quite held and people are not called to account on many issues. On this particular matter, I think public regulation is the correct way, as been proposed by the Honorable Member, Didymus Baraza. I think the referral system should be not be left to the medical practitioners and dentists board to administer the referral system, but it should be left to public regulation by the minister in public interest. I also think that it is time, as the Honorable Member Kiunjuri said, that we relooked at the idea of devolution of medical services in this country. It is quite disheartening that doctors are unemployed in the Republic of Kenya. If you look at our medical indicators, be it child mortality, be it the prevalence of the various diseases that we have, one would not understand why our doctors are unemployed. But I think it is because of devolution. And I think it is time that we relooked at this issue very deeply. I also think that it is time to relook at the devolved system of medical services, other than the fact that the doctors are unemployed, but the disparity and the iniquities that it has caused. More and more people in certain parts of the country are not having the right kind of medical service that they deserve, while others within urban areas or within the major cities tend to be favored. I think it is time...
Order, Honorable Karoli Omondi, you will have a balance of 8 minutes to speak on this during next time. Honorable members, and the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 26 April 2023 at 2:30 p.m.